in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Thursday, the 17th of March. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, a mostly cloudy sky, 1 degree. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Russian forces are escalating their attacks on civilians. A theater sheltering hundreds of people bombed, though some survivors have begun to emerge. And the strongest words yet from U.S. President Biden against Russia's Vladimir Putin. The latest from City's Jamie Pulfer.
The targeting of civilians continues in a shocking way as the Russian war in Ukraine rages on. In the southern port city of Mariupol, word that some people are emerging from the rubble of a theater that was hit by an airstrike where hundreds had been in a bomb shelter. Officials say that bomb shelter held. It is unclear, though, how many survivors there are. A rescue is underway. CNN's Scott McLean with the details of this merciless attack.
A satellite image showed that the word children written out in Russian was clearly visible from the skies for any Russian airplanes to see.
Ukraine's defense minister calls the Russian pilot who bombed the theater a monster. Just a few kilometers away, a building housing a public swimming pool was also hit. It had been sheltering women and children, according to officials. Speaking to a reporter, U.S. President Joe Biden brands Russian President Vladimir Putin a war criminal for the first time.
I think he is a war criminal.
Now, this is something the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is in Ukraine investigating.
One thing is clear, the law is clear on this. It is a crime to intentionally target civilians.
Now, diplomatic negotiations between Russia and Ukraine continue today. Ukrainian officials now say that 9 evacuation corridors have been agreed to out of several cities. Those corridors didn't work yesterday because Russia didn't stop shelling. The humanitarian crisis is growing, and the UN Security Council is meeting about that later today. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
City News time 9:02. A young man from the Kingston area is one of 2 Canadians clinging to life in Texas after a fiery highway crash that killed 9 other people. A pickup truck collided with a van that was carrying student athletes back to their Christian school in New Mexico after a Texas golf tournament Tuesday night. Authorities identified the 2 critically injured students as Hayden Underhill of Amherstview, west of Kingston, and Dayton Price from the Toronto area. Hayden's older brother says his parents are flying to Texas to be with his brother. Canada's health, transport, and tourism ministers are expected to announce changes to pandemic travel rules this morning. A federal source says vaccinated travelers will no longer require a negative COVID-19 test to come to Canada as of the 1st of April, just in time for tourism season, prompting relief from mayors of border cities in Canada and from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Time now for a look at our forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Enjoy the one-day warm-up. It's a very mild St. Patrick's Day for us. Some clouds, sunny periods, and the high 14 degrees. We will stay mild for the rest of the week and into the weekend, but today is the exception, well above average. 3 degrees tonight, mainly cloudy. Tomorrow we get into some showers, but not until the evening. Tomorrow's high 9 degrees, and then for the weekend a little bit cooler, highs near 5, but that's still above average. Rain on Saturday, some showers Sunday. For today, the high 14.
Finally starting to warm up. It's now 3 degrees in Ottawa under a mostly cloudy sky, still 1 in Smiths Falls. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinion.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Smothered enough to read the corn. Beaver I was born. Cut just out that corn to vanish. Ghosts and goblin run. You pair of bros. Rattling all the fogs. Frightening all the dogs. On the rocky road to Dublin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hot the hair and turn.
Good morning, Ottawa. There's a little taste for you. There's a little taste for the Celtic Tenors. Give away tickets, by the way. On the Sam LaPrade Show, gave away some tickets a little earlier this week. Enjoy that show happening at the Shankman Arts Center. Good way to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you all. A little shout out to my Uncle Bob. Had a little family reunion last night. He listens to the show all the time. Not just when I'm there. And it's not just a family thing. I am Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow for the rest of this week. Thank you for joining us. Let's walk down memory lane, get a little history. Because St. Patrick's Day is a real holiday, right? I know, we celebrate in different ways here in Canada, North America, but St. Patrick's Day, here's a little history, right? Celebrated annually, of course, on March 17th, anniversary of St. Patrick's death in the 5th century. The Irish, by the way, have observed this day as a religious holiday for over 1,000 years. On St. Patrick's Day, which falls during the Christian season of Lent, Irish families would traditionally attend church in the morning and celebrate in the afternoon. Lenten prohibitions against the consumption of meat were waived, and people would dance and drink and feast on the traditional meal of Irish bacon and cabbage. And who is this St. Patrick, you ask yourself? Well, he lived during the 5th century, patron saint of Ireland and its national apostle. Born in Roman Britain, by the way, is kidnapped, brought to Ireland as a slave at the age of 16. He later escaped, but returned to Ireland and was credited with bringing Christianity to its people. And then in the following centuries, following Patrick's death, believed to have been March 17th, 461. The mythology surrounding his life became even more ingrained in the Irish culture. Perhaps the most well-known legend of St. Patrick is that he explained the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, using the 3 leaves of a native Irish clover, the shamrock, and then the Irish here in Canada. Irish immigration to Canada began as early as the 17th century. Population of Irish Canadians increased dramatically in the 19th century, particularly in the wake of the Great Famine of the 1840s. According to the 2016 census, over 4.6 million Canadians, that's about 13% of the country, claim some Irish heritage. And then Canada's first St. Patrick's Day parade was held in Montreal in 1824. 1824. If you've never been to the Montreal St. Patrick's Day, it's absolutely wonderful. Fantastic parade, biggest in the country, lots of fun. The celebrations, by the way, have been known to cause a little controversy. St. Patrick's Day parades were banned in Toronto in 1878 after previous parades sparked violence between Catholics and Protestants. And get this, Toronto did not have a parade again. Now, remember, I said 1878 it was banned. Toronto did not have a parade again until 1988. That is a serious ban, my friends. A serious ban. Here in Ottawa, by the way, Ottawa police are warning and worried, of course, that students, some of the most enthusiastic partygoers out there, going to celebrate without masks like they did during last year's annual party following the Panda Game. You remember that disaster, the Panda Game, the party that spilled out afterwards, and oh my goodness, neighbors not too happy about the partying that continued on into the night. How many cars did
they flip? Or did they flip cars?
They did. It was
just one car?
I think it was just the one.
Okay, just one car.
Yeah, and they were jumping up and down on it. And remember, police got, that this is the people think it's so fun. Oh, let's take a video of this. What a great idea. And then, of course, charges were laid.
Yeah, they tracked them all down.
Yeah.
I remember we got one angry email from someone who was in one of those photos.
Oh, I remember that.
We had posted it on the web story. He was like, I didn't give you my permission to use this photo in your coverage. Well, dude, it's on the internet, man.
Exactly. Public consumption, my friend. Nice try. Yeah, so, the Ottawa Police Services are warning that, just take it easy. Unfortunately, they're saying, unfortunately, there's nothing they can do to stop them. That's coming from the Vice President of Community Engagement at the Carleton University Students Association, Callie Ogden, saying it's students' own decision whether they want to follow COVID-19 protocols or not. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. The student group, by the way, is working with the police to encourage students to follow COVID-19 protocols while celebrating, even if that means cutting back on the extravagance of St. Patrick's Day festivities. They've also warned Ottawa police that they will have a greater presence during the festivities downtown. So let everybody just be nice, be kind, enjoy. It's St. Patrick's Day. It's a great time for all. Let's talk about the Talkback Hour today. Okay? We're going to do the Talkback Hour like we do each and every day after the 10 o'clock news, an hour of your phone calls and your opinions. We set that hour aside for you each and every day. It is your hour to share your opinion, and we invite you to join us. We hope you will. Our number is 613-750-1310. You call after the 10 o'clock news. And we want to pick up today where we left off our conversation yesterday on the cost of living. We got a lot of calls. As soon as we opened up this topic, our phone lines lit up. We heard from a lot of you yesterday on how you're feeling the squeeze, feeling like you just can't get ahead, working longer for what seems to be less money, struggling just to keep food in the fridge, never mind going out, right? We talked about the fact how so many of us, yes, we want to support local, our restaurants and our retail and our small businesses, but some people are struggling so much they don't have that discretionary money to spend. I mean, have you seen the price of vegetables these days? David, I'll have to bring this up again. David spent $2.60 on one onion.
I was thinking of framing that receipt.
You should.
For like historical context.
Absolutely.
Might go in a museum one day.
Like $2.60. And it was just like your basic yellow onion, by the way. It's not like a Spanish onion or a white onion or a red onion, just your basic yellow onion. We heard from you loud and clear yesterday that times are tough and getting tougher. Then, okay, we followed that up. Oh, it hurts me to say it. We follow that up with the Prime Minister and Premier as they stood in front of the cameras at a Honda plant in Alliston, Ontario, and announced that they're giving over $260 million. Let me slow that down for you. $260 million, over $250 million of tax money, your money, our money, to Honda. I'm laughing. Not because I'm happy, okay? Because it's just, it just frustrates so many people. An automotive giant, by the way, that made just shy of, you're not going to believe what their revenue was last year. I'm going to share it with you. And hold on. I'm going to give you a moment. Just buckle up, okay? If you're in your car, tighten that seatbelt. You're at home, I don't know. Get on the couch, man, and grab a couple of pillows and hug them, okay? They made $130 billion in sales last year. $130 billion in revenue. The idea is that they give Honda money to retrofit their factory, and then they start making more hybrid cars so people can buy more hybrid cars and save the planet. I mean, this is positive news. Unless, of course, you can't afford the hybrid car, right? What are they going for? $55,000, $50,000 and you can't find a used one. It's impossible. My wife was looking. My wife Monica was looking for used ones. She says there's nothing available. So after the 10 o'clock news, I want to hear from you. Are our politicians out of touch with what life is like for the rest of us? They all seemed rather pleased with themselves yesterday, giving all this money to Honda so they might start making more hybrid vehicles most of us can't afford. What do you think of that? 613-750-1310 after the 10 o'clock news. And speaking of that announcement, we're fair here on the show. We want everybody's perspectives on this show. This morning, I sat down with Ontario's Minister of Economic Development, Vic Fedeli, and I asked him if now is really the right time to be giving subsidies to multi-billion-dollar car companies. You can hear that conversation because it's coming up next. This is the Rob Snow Show. I'm Derick Fage filling in right here on City News.
There we go. Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Ottawa is a very political city, and it's not just political with the people in Parliament. You got street politics, you got business politics, you got basketball politics, and if you don't know how to navigate the systems, you get left behind. I did. They thought I went crazy. They thought I was dead. I was. But it's never too late to heal, to rebuild, to reinvent yourself. Prezi.
I love to make abundance boards. And why do I call them abundance boards? Because they're an abundance of all the things that you love together. There's no rhyme or reason, there's no rules. It's literally about taking a whole bunch of different ingredients and making them into something that you love, that you can snack on. Maybe curl up on the couch and have a snack night. Charcuterie is all about a meat plate. And antipasti is all about a little bit of meat, a little bit of fruit, and a little bit of snack that you might have at the beginning of a meal, like an appetizer. I like to take all of these concepts and kind of mesh them together. It's kind of like a work of art because you're creating something delicious, but you're also creating something that looks super fancy, like from a gourmet style restaurant, but just using simple things you have.
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off this week. I am Derick Fage filling in for Rob. And on Wednesday, you heard it right here on City News. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced millions in funding support for domestic hybrid car production at the Honda plant in Alliston, Ontario. The government will be giving Honda a little over $260 million for upgrades at the plant that will eventually be building the 2023 CR-V and CR-V hybrid vehicles. Joining me now to talk more about this announcement is Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Vic Fedeli. Good morning, Mr. Fedeli.
Good morning, Derek. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you as well. And I understand we find you in beautiful Thunder Bay this morning.
I am in Thunder Bay today, not my home of North Bay. So this is a great day. Going to be meeting the Premier not only yesterday in Alliston, but today in Thunder Bay.
Excellent, and ready to make another big announcement. But let's talk about yesterday's announcement. Tell us a bit more about this announcement. How much money is the Ontario government pitching in?
Both the feds and the province are putting about $132 million each. It's a great investment into the future of Alliston, where Honda is investing $1.4 billion. This will secure thousands of jobs for Ontario. And I got to say, when we first took office and we understood the automakers told us that the cost of doing business in Ontario had gotten out of reach, we really put a lot of elbow grease into it, pulled all the levers that a government can, like reducing WSIB premiums without reducing the benefits, things like that. We lowered the cost of doing business by $7 billion a year, and that's why the automakers are lining up to expand in Ontario.
How long do you think this is going to take? When do you hope to see the Alliston factory start making more hybrid vehicles?
Oh, no, they're going to be converting over immediately. This has been in the works for quite some time, so this isn't talk. This is immediate movement. And I will say, strap yourself in. All of the hard work, all of the shoe leather that Premier Ford and myself have been wearing out across North America is all going to start to roll out in the next short while, starting with Honda yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm certain our listeners have the understanding that to attract manufacturers of all kinds, not just automobile manufacturers. There are incentives. We compete against the rest of the world. We compete, of course, with other provinces and so forth. But, when we look at the numbers, Honda made $129.5 billion in revenue last year. And so many of our listeners are probably asking themselves, why do they need another over $260 million from the taxpayer to make hybrid vehicles?
Yeah, you're going to see this happening worldwide. We've got 100,000 employees that work directly in the auto sector. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, 4 years ago, our auto sector was teetering. Sergio Marchionne, the former president at then Fiat Chrysler, told former Premier Wynne, "You have made Ontario the most expensive jurisdiction in which to do business." So we really had to do a lot of work, and that's why I say the first thing we did was lower the cost of doing business with lowering taxes, cutting red tape, lowering business energy rates, lowering business property taxes, making $7 billion in savings. But worldwide, there are incentives worldwide, and we cannot afford to lose any of these jobs. So we've decided that we will be the North American leader in developing and building that car of the future. And it is going to mean all of the original equipment manufacturers, all of the auto companies. We will be there for them to provide incentives for them to grow their jobs here. First of all, keep their jobs here in Ontario and grow them. We have 700 parts manufacturers that are affected. We have 500 tool and die and mold makers that are affected. We have hundreds of companies who work on the technology of cars right here in Ontario.
I understand that, but you can certainly see the optics for many people that are listening, looking at the revenue and looking at the cost of living that we're seeing for the average Ontarian. And just the average Canadian, even right across the country, and seeing this kind of amount of money. I understand what you're saying. We have to offer incentives. It just, I wonder, the timing of it just seems difficult for many people having struggled through this pandemic.
Let me take it a step further then.
Okay.
So we secure these jobs. We make Ontario this leader in emerging technology, car of the future. That means now we need to attract a battery manufacturer.
Right.
That will be thousands of new jobs to Ontario, and yes, we'll incentivize that as well. That's thousands of new jobs in Ontario. And then that also means in the critical minerals, which are produced here in Ontario. In fact, Canada is the only country in the in the entire Western Hemisphere with all the raw materials required to make a lithium-ion battery. So all of a sudden now, Northern Ontario is for the first time in 120 years, part of the auto strategy. We're talking about thousands of jobs in the mineral sector, thousands of jobs making the components for batteries. That's the precursor, the cathodes. Thousands of jobs making batteries, all because we are providing incentives like we did with Ford, where we provided $295 million to Ford.
Right.
They're going to be the EV center in Oakville.
Uh-huh.
This is part of the bigger picture, the end-to-end.
Okay, well, let's break it down in another way. When we look at the cost of this technology, it's, for the average person looking to buy a new vehicle, it still seems out of reach at a time when, inflation is at a 30-year high, wage growth is completely flat. The Ontario Liberals, if they're saying if they're elected in June, they're offering that $8,000 back for anyone who wants to buy an electric car. And, we're looking at, electric cars are... the MSRP is at, $45,000, $55,000. This is sort of the starting point. What's your philosophy on direct consumer subsidies for buying green vehicles?
Where you're going to see us invest is in the supply side. That's where we believe the government should be investing the billions of dollars that we are going to invest. It should be on the supply side. That's where the jobs are. If we don't have the money invested in the supply side, we will not make any electric vehicles in Ontario.
Are there enough people, though? That's what I'm asking. Are there enough people that can afford those vehicles? The supply is all well and good, but if the average person can't afford it, and the infrastructure isn't in place, and I know that's not just the responsibility of the province, it's certainly the responsibility of the federal and provincial government, but we still need a lot of infrastructure in place for, to move towards an all-electric vehicle or going, even the hybrid route.
Well, I know that we had sold 3 times the electric vehicles in Ontario today that we did when we first took office.
Well, certainly, but it's 3 times of nothing. Right.
So we know it is growing. There's no question about that. But we're investing in the supply side. We want to secure those 100,000 jobs, and this is the method that we do that. We are securing the jobs in the manufacturing side of vehicles. We're creating thousands of new jobs in the manufacturing of batteries. We're securing those hundreds of thousands of jobs in the parts makers and the tools and dies and molds. And we're adding the jobs in the critical minerals. This is where the government feels we need to be is on the support of the workers to make sure that there's jobs there for them.
Let's look at the economy in another way. You're with your role. You're very busy these days. What's your feeling right now about the overall direction of Ontario's economic recovery?
Oh, we are. I've got to find a better way to say this because I say it almost every day. We're on fire right now.
Really?
We are firing on all cylinders. Every single morning of every single day, I send Premier Ford what I like to call his one-a-day vitamin.
Okay.
It perks him up in the morning, I'll tell you. It's the name of a company, how many millions they're investing, which city they're investing in, how many people they're hiring, and then whether we have any skin in the game or not.
Well, that's the key. It's getting people certainly back to work, right? We took calls from listeners yesterday on this show about the cost of living, and we heard from parents, that are working 60 hours a week. I heard from one gentleman that, he has a difficult time. He sees his kids, once a week just to keep food on the table. People in Ontario are hurting, Mr. Fedeli. This is real economic pain. And I hear what you're saying. The numbers are looking relatively good, but the cost, even looking at a 1-bedroom apartment here in Ottawa is $1,700. You've got to make a decent amount of money to pay for a $1,700 1-bedroom apartment, right?
So that's why we're doing everything we can to lower the cost for families. So when we have no tax increases since we've been off, none. We've been letting the people keep the money in their pockets rather than in the pocket of the government. Something like the VAL tags, where we're putting $120 back in your pocket. That's the kinds of things that a government can do to make sure that you have a few extra dollars in your pocket every month. So there's a long list of things that we've provided over the years, the 4 years that we've been in government. Lift the low-income family tax credit, CARE, the further tax credit. We've got a seniors tax credit right now if you have mobility issues and you want to make improvements in your home. We have a skill training tax credit. All of these things are intended, including the VAL tags, the rebate that you're going to get, including that is all designed to put money back in your pocket to help you with these costs.
Mr. Fedeli, are you able to share what your announcement's going to be there in Thunder Bay today?
Well, I don't want to Bigfoot the Premier.
Okay.
But,
all right. I just wanted to check, that's my job. That's my job.
I can tell you we're heading to a mine site.
We'll pick it up here on City News as well. Mr. Fedeli, appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's great. Thanks, Derick.
You're very welcome. That is Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Vic Fedeli. Don't go anywhere. This is Derick Fage filling in on the Rob Snow Show right here on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Thursday, the 17th of March. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, mostly cloudy and 3 degrees. It's 4 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. A young man from the Kingston area is clinging to life in a Texas hospital this morning after a fiery highway crash that killed 9 other people. A pickup truck collided with a van carrying student athletes back to their New Mexico university. Authorities identified the 2 critically injured students as Hayden Underhill of Amherstview, west of Kingston, and Dayton Price from the Toronto area. A coalition of student associations pleading with college teachers, schools, and the provincial government to prevent a college teacher strike that's scheduled to happen as early as tomorrow. Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table publishing its latest modeling on the virus today at noon. The new projections come as Ontario prepares to drop most of its COVID-19 public health measures. Ottawa and the Valley's first St. Patrick's Day with no COVID restrictions in bars in 3 years. Local establishments expecting a surge of customers today for their first St. Patrick's Day out with other people since 2019. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. I hope you had a chance to listen in on our interview with Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Vic Fedeli. Great interview. You know, we asked him some tough questions. Certainly an understanding that you absolutely need to put in incentives to attract people. We're gonna talk a little bit about that deal that was made yesterday, that big announcement between Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau in this next segment, because, as you know, each and every Thursday around 9:30 we do Ontario Politics This Week. By the way, this is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow. Rob is off this week. We have, as usual, joining us here on the show, Andrew Brander, Vice President with Crestview Strategy and former advisor to the Ford government. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Top of the morning to you.
Top of the morning to you. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you, Andrew. I think we're just trying to get Lindsay here on the line as well, but you know what? We're going to start. By the way, let's start with that. Why not start on a positive note here? Have you got any plans for St. Patrick's Day? I mean, this is the first one in 2 years we can actually go out and really enjoy ourselves.
It is. It's quite exciting. To be honest, here in Toronto, don't have plans yet.
Okay.
I'm sure I will end up somewhere. Looks like it might be warm enough here to brave a patio after all the last 2 years we've braved patios in much cooler weather, so I think it's going to be nice. I do have to say though, like I was out walking my dogs this morning and already saw a ton of people dressed up appropriately.
Nice.
So looks like there's going to be a lot of people who are very excited to get out, support some small local businesses, and I'd encourage all of your listeners to go to the best St. Patrick's Day celebration in the city there. That can be found, of course, at the Royal Oak at Kent and Slater.
Oh, yes. Great spot.
I spent at least 10 St. Patrick's Days there during my time in the city. And I will say this is the one day a year that I really, really miss Ottawa, because there's no shortage of great Irish pubs in the city.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Actually, our very own Amy Volume, who does our weekdays from noon till 3 on Shea 106, she's at the Overflow Brewing Company getting things set there. She's going to be live from the Overflow Brewing Company. So before she goes live at noon, we're gonna check in with her just after 11 o'clock to find out what things look like. And yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of people out and enjoying the festivities for sure. And our local businesses, yeah, they certainly need our help. Andrew, let's turn our attention to, I mentioned off the top that announcement, Doug Ford, and Justin Trudeau announcing a $250 million plan to subsidize the retrofit of a Honda factory so it can produce more hybrid vehicles. And just before that, Stephen Del Duca announced that if he becomes premier, he would restore an $8,000 direct subsidy for buying electric cars. Do you figure this will become an election issue at all?
I mean, in some aspects, for sure, the PCs were pretty effective, I think, even in the opposition days of sort of framing the electric vehicle subsidy in a bit of a negative light in terms of, the criticism back in the day was that electric vehicles were so expensive that you were, subsidizing people who could obviously afford to buy them, who were the people who needed these subsidies the least. So I do think that the PCs are probably going to have sort of boxed themselves out of supporting a policy like that. But there are other. So ways. You
don't think that's still the case, Andrew? That they're still unaffordable to the average worker?
Well, they've certainly come down, come significantly down in price. When we talk about electric vehicles now, we're not just talking about Teslas.
Right.
So
of course.
I do think there is more of an argument to be made. But as I said, I do think that the PCs have done a significant amount to sort of box themselves out of a direct subsidy policy. However, I would say, like, this government, as you heard from, Minister Fedeli, really leaning into the auto manufacturing strategy. And in doing so, they are bringing the cost of these vehicles down for everyone across the board. So it's really the subsidy sort of almost happening at the source if you really look at it. When I was at Environment and we were talking with Minister Fedeli's office at the time in terms of how their auto manufacturing strategy could really integrate into a way that was tangible for us to have a significant environmental impact and really encourage this. I didn't really think that this plan would, be as credible as it is today. But clearly the government's put a lot of effort into this strategy and it's paying off.
Andrew, do you think it's still a tough sell? Like when I spoke to Mr. Fedeli, I mentioned it just at this time when you look at a company getting over $260 million of taxpayers' money when they had $129.5 billion in revenue last year. We're coming out of 2 years of a pandemic with job losses and business losses and, people finding it hard to make ends meet. And, we've got record inflation numbers, the highest inflation numbers we've seen in 30 years. And then you roll out something like this. And inevitably, was it going to happen? Yeah, perhaps. I guess it's, better to do it sooner rather than later. But I just think it's a tough sell.
It's never an easy sell, handing these things out. But I would say, if we're looking at it strictly in the context of Honda and one announcement, I don't think that's doing it justice. These types of announcements really integrate our economies. They connect, manufacturing facilities in close to Toronto to our resource sector in Northern Ontario, which then obviously has an economic spin-off there as well. And the broader strategy of really attracting these skilled workers to the province, which really is, quite untangible in terms of the return on benefit. So credit where credit's due. The federal government stepped up for this. The provincial government stepped up for this, and quite frankly, how timely. When as we see people fuming at the pumps. In terms of prices, there really is no better subsidy than the frustration people are feeling at the pumps right now.
Well, they certainly need to see a greater increase in sales of electric vehicles. There's no doubt. I just looking at the numbers earlier today. from last year, auto dealers sold about 66,800 electric vehicles. Now, if you look at, the percentage of that, they were up 42.5%, of the annual sales records recorded in 2020. But at the same time, 66,800 vehicles compared to what? There's probably 15 million vehicles on the roads.
Sure.
Not a big number. So those numbers certainly have to go up. And I know they're making another announcement at a mine in Thunder Bay. Mr. Fedeli obviously didn't want to steal the thunder from Premier Doug Ford and let us know what that announcement is. But I imagine it's going to be an announcement talking about some further subsidies for that mine because, as you said, there are other industries such as, the parts and manufacturing industries, those who, are, what goes into creating a battery. There's thousands and thousands of jobs here. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Absolutely. The government, between this and the government's critical mineral strategy, we have the technology, we have the resources, we have the people, and so this is about sort of connecting those economies, scaling it appropriately, and the more obviously that we're able to do that, the more affordable these vehicles become here at home, and the more you're going to see that number trend in the right direction.
Another thing that came out of yesterday's announcement, both Premier Ford and Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, were asked at that announcement yesterday about childcare, and both said a deal is coming soon. We know the deadline is March 31st. Do you think they'll get that done before the end of the month? Does it hurt Doug Ford if they don't get that done?
I do think it's coming before the election, and therefore, if the deadline's March 31st, I think that's probably a safe assumption. They don't sound like they're far apart. And I would say, the government really has done a number in the past few weeks of cleaning up some of these hanging chads, which is a sort of a term I use to describe political vulnerabilities that they have heading into the election, and I'd put childcare on that list.
Yeah.
They do not want to go into an election and say that they are the only province that hasn't reached.
Yeah, that's not a good look. That's not a good look. Yeah.
No, it's not. And we've seen them, take a number of steps. In the healthcare space on significant announcements around, health human resource challenges, new medical schools, recruitment tools. They've cleaned up and made a ton of announcements around, long-term care. This childcare really would be one of the largest outstanding ones, and they've really approached this election very cautiously, insulating themselves against anything that they can be sort of outflanked on from the Liberal perspective. So I certainly expect a deal. I'd expect that's also probably the negotiation tactics and the state of the negotiation in the childcare deal, probably a reason that the budget has been also pushed back a little bit. And so once they have that, I think that's going to be a significant piece as they want to talk about as they head into the election.
Andrew, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back. We'll continue talking Ontario politics, and we'll dive into a little federal politics as well, because that race for the leadership of the Conservative Party on the federal level is so compelling, and I want to get your thoughts on that. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
Sometimes it's crazy, but it's true. When I'm alone at night, feels alright to feel the blues.
Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Oh, welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off today. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in. And we are joined by, again, Andrew Brander, Vice President with Crestview Strategy and former advisor to the Ford government, because it is another edition of Ontario Politics this week. I said we're going to dive into some federal politics, but before we get to that, Andrew, you did mention before the break the provincial budget. Let's talk about that for a moment. When do you think we'll see that?
The timing game.
Yes.
So obviously, the government went to some difficulty to change the legislation to allow for the budget to be tabled in April.
Right.
There's of course some break weeks scattered in there as well. So really, the time frame is pretty narrow. I would expect to see it. Sort of in the, if you're a political observer like me, you tend to know the government really likes to announce these budgets and then have sort of a break week so that all the MPPs can sort of go back to their ridings and talk about all the great things that are in it.
Of course.
I noticed Minister Beth Paulby's racking up a few public events in the second week of April, which I'd imagine would be sort of some indicators of some laying the table, if you will,
right.
For what's to come. So I'd expect to see it in and around that time frame, and of course, beginning of May, we're right into the writ period. So I'd expect to see the government table the budget, have a week or two to sell it to constituents, and then we're into an election.
And of course, people like yourself and myself and David and Rob, we just love this. We just you just wait for it. And I wanted to touch on, as I said, some federal politics, because I think it's going to be an intriguing race. Patrick Brown, Pierre Poilievre, the race, of course, heating up this week. They went at it pretty fiercely on Twitter. It was literally 3 to 5 tweets, and it was like, game on, game on. What did you think about how how the two are sort of trying to frame each other in these early stages?
Well, it's Ontario politics this week, and of course, these are two Ontario candidates, so I think it's fair that we talk about it.
That's true. Good point.
You know, a lot of people have sort of talked about how nasty this race has started. I honestly can't say I'm surprised. These are serious competitors competing for a serious job, and importantly, they're very different candidates. They are presenting completely different visions, which is a great choice for Conservative Party members to have. It's a healthy exercise to go through that debate, especially when there seems to be so much of leaders in the past who have said one thing and then did something else because they thought they needed to do something else to win or whatever it is. So I think, part of it is really and truly just a natural contrast in competing visions. The other thing I'd mention on this is I think their tone, the tone that they are adopting, is one of a reaction of what they're hearing from party members. Conservatives are frustrated. They're tired of losing. Mm-hmm. We just came through an election where if we want to talk about divisive exchanges, the Prime Minister flew around the country dividing Canadians, and he was rewarded for it. A second campaign now where the Liberals have very, very effectively been able to cast dispersions on the Conservative Party leader. Conservative members don't want to see that again, so they're going to treat this as an election campaign and be able to demonstrate that they can either be, proven as battlefied or fall flat. And
it's really up to that. You mentioned it, Andrew. It's really up to that membership. I mean, the membership has to take a really hard look at themselves and say, how can we win back the votes here in Canada so that we can, be a majority government, but they have to take a really hard look because I'm just sharing, what I'm hearing from people around me. And, you look at Pierre Poilievre, a smart guy, a lot of support around him. I understand that. But, conservatives that I've talked about who are certainly on the fence type of conservatives are saying, if he wins, we don't have a shot at becoming at a conservative becoming the next prime minister.
Well, I think that is fundamentally the ultimate contrast that this is going to come down to. I think you're going to see Pierre Poilievre do exactly what he's doing now, which is saying, this is a number of things I believe in. Come with me. Or don't, but this is what I believe, and you're going to see an alternative contrast to that in someone like Patrick Brown saying our party needs to change in order to form government, and so I think that ultimately is going to be the contrast, and you'll remember, Aaron O'Toole tried that sort of strategy in saying, in making a pretty compelling case to conservatives that was the path to win, right? The night he won the leadership, he said, I am going to ask, conservatives to come along with me to embrace this. We have to change. But it didn't work. So, that is a serious question.
I think he tried to cater to both sides a little too much, and then all of a sudden he became, the flip-flopper, right?
Bingo. And that's the risk, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to accuse Pierre Poilievre at the end of this of being a flip-flop.
No, that's an absolute guarantee. Before I let you go, Doug Ford has said, neither he nor his caucus members are going to endorse anyone for the Tory race. I'm not surprised to hear that, but just wanted to get your thoughts.
Not surprised. If he has to stay out of it, so does everyone else. There's no benefit to them getting involved. Interestingly, the membership sales cutoff is actually June 3rd, a day after the provincial election.
That is interesting, yeah.
So we have, as I mentioned before, we have two candidates who are both sort of the presumed front runners at this point, running from different parts of Ontario. The people that are involved in these types of campaigns, political organizers in the Conservative movement, there's actually not that many of them. Generally, it's the same people doing provincial elections as are doing these federal elections or leaderships.
Right.
So there's going to be a real strain on resources, and this is, I think this is Premier Ford just saying, look, we need all hands on deck, at least until Election Day. It will be really interesting to see the amount of provincial MPPs that choose to pick a side after June 3rd.
Yeah, agreed.
Or after June 2nd.
Andrew, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us again today.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a great week.
Thanks, you too. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you and to, of course, all of our listeners. That's Andrew Brander, Vice President with Crestview Strategy and former advisor to the Ford government. It is the Talkback Hour. Coming up after the 10 o'clock news, 613-750-1310. We want to pick up where we left off yesterday. In our conversation about the cost of living, we heard a lot from all of you yesterday that you're feeling squeezed. The budget is short. At the end of the month, you're having to choose between filling up the car, going out for a nice meal, worried about how to keep your kids in their after-school activities. That's one thing we heard about a lot yesterday, right, is those extracurricular activities. You can't save money. I mean, inflation rate in 2021 means the government is raking in, big windfalls in consumption taxes. That's the extra fun part, by the way, about inflation. It lowers your purchasing power, and it means the government keeps more of your money at the same time. Yeah. It's difficult, but we want to hear from you. We had great conversations yesterday. Are you feeling the pinch? We'll go over some numbers as well after the 10 o'clock news. 613-750-1310. Give us a call. Are you feeling the pinch? We want to talk about the cost of living here in Ottawa and across the country. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow. You're watching on Rogers TV and listening on City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Thursday, the 17th of March. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy and 3 degrees. It's 4 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. U.S. President Biden has branded Vladimir Putin a war criminal. And the Russians are now accused of targeting a theater that was sheltering hundreds of civilians, including children. Now the scene this morning of a search and rescue operation. Our Jamie Pulford joins us with the latest.
Russia is escalating attacks on civilians in Ukraine. In Mariupol, a theater has been hit by an airstrike in the southern port city. We're now learning as many as 1,500 people had been holed up in a shelter under that theater. Ukrainian officials say some people are emerging from the rubble, that the bomb shelter was able to withstand the impact of the airstrike. A rescue operation is underway. At this point, though, it's unclear how many survivors there are. What's chilling is that satellite images before the bombing show the word children clearly spelled out in Russian on two sides of that building. Ukraine blames Russian airstrikes, but CNN's Scott McLean says Russia has a different story.
They say that it was an ultra-nationalist militia that's been incorporated into the Ukrainian armed forces that bombed this theater, saying that they wouldn't have seen it as a legitimate target.
All as U.S. President Joe Biden labels Russian President Vladimir Putin a war criminal for the first time. And it's something the chief prosecutor with the International Criminal Court is investigating. Ukrainian officials report 9 evacuation corridors have been agreed to out of several cities today as diplomatic talks with Russia continues. Corridors didn't work out yesterday because Russia didn't stop shelling. Jamie Pulford, City News.
City News time 10:03. A young man from the Kingston area is one of 2 Canadians fighting for their lives this morning after a fiery highway crash in West Texas that killed 9 other people. A pickup truck collided with a van carrying student athletes back to their school in New Mexico after a Texas golf tournament Tuesday night. Authorities identified the 2 critically injured university students as Hayden Underhill of Amherst View, west of Kingston, and Dayton Price of the Toronto area. Hayden's older brother says his parents are flying to Texas to be with his brother. A study by the U.S. Insurance Institute for Highway Safety finds drivers of pickup trucks and SUVs are more likely to hit pedestrians when making turns than drivers of smaller vehicles. Researchers found the number of pedestrians killed in the states jumped 59% between 2009 and 2020. SUV and pickup truck sales skyrocketed over the same period. They say more study is needed to determine if wider pillars that hold up the roofs of larger vehicles make it harder for drivers making turns to spot people who are walking. Time now for a look at our forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The average high about 3 or 4 degrees will be well above that today. The high near 14 degrees, some clouds, some sunshine, and then tonight mainly cloudy and 3 degrees. Tomorrow, the clouds really take over. Showers mainly for the evening, the high near 9. For the weekend, rain on Saturday, the high near 5 degrees. Spring arrives on Sunday, 11:33 in the morning. We'll likely have some showers and a gusty wind. For today, the high 14.
Right now, partly cloudy and 6 in Ottawa. It's 9 in Smiths Falls. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Well, Rob may be off, but the talk hour continues. Derick Fage here. Host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in for Rob. We do this each and every day. You know it. On the Rob Snow Show. One of the only radio stations across the country taking calls. Getting your opinion each and every day. A full hour dedicated to you, the listener. And we want to pick up where we left off yesterday, as I mentioned just before the break, in our conversation about the cost of living. We heard from a lot of you yesterday that you're feeling the pinch, you're feeling squeezed, the budget is short at the end of the month, you're having to choose between filling up the car or going out for a nice meal at the end of the week. Maybe you're worried about how keep your kids in, their after-school activities, those extracurricular activities. Many of them are back and we're celebrating it, right? Oh, the city of Ottawa, go to their website and all their programs are back. But from what we heard yesterday from many of our listeners, many of our callers, is you can't afford it. You can't afford to save money You're having a difficult time planning for your future. You're really just trying to keep your head above water. Do you feel like your politicians care about your cost of living? You know they don't feel it themselves, like us, right? Let's be honest. They make good salaries. And I'm not saying their job is easy. It's, getting into politics, it's a huge commitment. But at the same time, they don't know how we feel. They don't feel it themselves. The inflation rate in 2021 means the government is raking in big windfalls in consumption taxes. Right? It lowers your purchasing power. The inflation rate in 2021, 2022, the last 2 years, right? It lowers your purchasing power, and it means the government keeps more of your money at the same time. And we haven't heard about anyone cutting taxes. We have yet to hear any politician talking about cutting taxes, cutting the sales tax, income tax, even temporarily to give people a break. Have you? Ontario Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Vic Fedeli, reminding us that the provincial government hasn't raised taxes in our interview earlier this morning. But is that good enough? Judging from the calls we got yesterday, the answer is a resounding no. Our number here, 613-750-1310. Want to talk about the cost of living here in this country, and specifically, of course, here in Ottawa. Let's go to Leo. Leo in South Keys. Leo, what are your thoughts on this? Are you having a tough time?
Well, yes, and I think a lot of other people are. Derick, I just want to let you know that you're doing a great job for filling in for Rob.
Thanks, Leo. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And the thing is here with this inflation, we're not in inflation now. I think we're in a period of stagflation. Okay?
Yeah,
and the stagflation is the devaluation of the dollar.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it's going to be soon enough that the dollar is not going to be worth hardly anything if this keeps going like this. You're not going to buy anything for your dollars.
Well, so, I don't see it getting to that point, but I understand your sentiments for sure.
But you got to look at it this way. Your wage is not going to increase, so you're going to go out and you're going to buy a lot less goods for the amount of money that you
absolutely.
have.
Absolutely.
So that's not going to help the businesses grow, so that's going to hurt businesses.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Businesses. That's going to hurt industrial businesses, commercial businesses, all businesses. So if this gets worse, it's a thing. And the Federal Reserve, we see the stock market going down one day and up one day and down one day. It's all fake. It's all printed money by the Federal Reserve. They're printing 24/7 to inflate the stock market. And by doing that, all they're doing is creating a big bubble. And sooner or later, that big bubble's got to have to burst because it just can't keep going like that.
Yeah, and Leo, you bring up a good point. And listen, before I say this, rightfully so, we've been encouraging people to support local business, to support small business, to help businesses that have struggled through the pandemic. But often forgotten are, the staff of all of those businesses that have struggled, not only the owners and then the consumers that lost jobs and that are, that have struggled and they're trying to come back and looking for, perhaps new jobs or returning to their jobs, but they're in a position where they're not able to, have that discretionary entertainment money that they would love to have, that they would love to spend, right?
Exactly. And I don't know, even though the thing with inflation keeps going up and up and up, employers, if they're not selling more goods, they can't afford to pay their employees more money. So if they can't afford to pay their employees more money to catch up with the inflation, that doesn't help the situation. It just goes backwards,
Yeah,
now we have taxi drivers that want more money, teachers from the whatever the strike is going on with the college
professors, teachers,
we're living in really tough times. I think in my lifetime, this has got to be some of the worst times in my entire life.
Yeah, and as I said, we're not hearing anything from anybody. I mean, the $10 a day childcare, that is certainly something that is going to help families.
Yeah.
I'm pretty guaranteed that Ontario is going to come on board, and which is great if you have kids who need childcare. But what are you doing for the rest of us, right? That's going to come up. The carbon tax is another one.
Another thing, too, before I let you go there, before you let me go, it's going to be on April 1st, the gas station guy that I normally gas up told me the pollution tax, I call it the pollution tax instead of the carbon tax, is going to be 15 cents a liter.
Holy jeez, again.
That's what he told me on April the 1st.
Well, I'm not sure what
added to whatever the price is going to be at the pump right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think Trudeau's going to stop that or put that on hold.
I don't see it happening either, Leo. I mean, I think it should happen, but Leo, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it.
All right, Derick.
Take care. Thanks, you too. Some great perspectives there from Leo. Let's head over to Sarah. Sarah in Burnstown. Sarah, what are your thoughts on this after hearing Leo? Or you find yourself in the same position where the cost of living is just getting to be too difficult?
So for us, we are fortunate enough that we both have very well-paying jobs and we don't have children.
Okay.
So we aren't feeling the pinch like other people.
Right.
But friends of ours that have a 1-year-old, they're paying more for daycare than they are for their mortgage.
Wow.
And that's not sustainable. And that's just because their daughter's under that 18-month cap.
Right.
So, yes, the $10 daycare, like, it needs to be introduced, but they need to go further than that and also restrict house buying power. So not having investment companies buy these properties because, like, I'm 27.
Okay.
And we are lucky enough to own our own home, but many of our friends can't.
Oh, yeah.
And they have, like, their full-time, very well-paying jobs, and they still can't afford it because they live and work in Barrie or Kitchener or Ottawa. Like, it's all of Ontario that's feeling this, regardless of where you are, and the prices at the pumps are not helping. So they need to the government needs to give a break to that middle class and even upper middle class because we're all feeling it, especially at the pumps.
Well, and the divide between rich and poor throughout this pandemic, Sarah, it's just grown. The divide has become greater and greater. I mean, it's disheartening for people to listen to the news and look on social media and see the fact that, you know, the rich are continuing to build their wealth. And so many people are just feeling left behind. And now you're explaining, Sarah, that you have two high-paying jobs. However, I would ask you, without kids at the moment, I would, are there some things that you're still not doing though? Like, have you held off on going on a vacation or anything like that?
We have held off in the sense that we actually are getting married this year.
Oh, congratulations! Nice.
Yeah, but we've cut back that budget as well.
Right. Yeah.
But both of us are healthcare workers.
Okay.
So our jobs have not been affected by this pandemic at all.
Not financially, but perhaps emotionally.
Yes, in other ways.
Yeah.
In other ways, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that.
Not financially.
Right.
And there needs to be help for those who have been affected.
Yeah,
we can't continue at this rate, and even something as simple as no rent increases, period.
Yeah,
My sister-in-law is paying $2,300 a month for a 1-bedroom plus den.
A 1-bedroom, $2,300, and where does she live?
She is in Markham.
Okay, in Markham. Wow, Sarah, really appreciate the call.
Even then, like, you look at it Renfrew, and houses here are renting for $1,800 a month. Like, there needs to be something else that the government has to step in.
Yeah. Well, and we spoke to the Home Builders Association. They've got an advocacy campaign that they're rolling out here for, pre-election. It's been called a housing crisis and a housing emergency in both the province and in different municipal districts right across the country. But it's all just words. it's all just symbolic so far. Where there doesn't seem to be any help. Sarah, really appreciate the call. Thanks so much, and enjoy it out there in Burnstown, a beautiful, beautiful part of Ontario out there in Burnstown. All right, we've got a couple of lines open. Give us a call, 613-750-1310. It's the Talkback Hour. It's your hour. We want to know what you think. Are you hearing enough from your politicians? You know, I haven't heard a reporter asking about things like, you know, can you cut the GST? Like, do something. Do something out there, right? There's huge windfalls for the government when inflation gets high. And then we just see nothing happening. 613-750-1310. This is Derick Fage filling in on the Rob Snow Show right here on Rogers TV and City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
613-750-1310. That's the number. It's Talkback Hour. It's your hour. Join us. Love to have you call in. Get your opinions. Our lines are lighting up now. Inflation in Canada at a 30-year high. It's the worst it's been since 91. The worst it's been since 91. Groceries are up 7.4% year over year. Shelter costs up 6.6%, the biggest increase in housing costs since 1983. Gas is up 6.9%. It goes on and on. Let's take some calls because, as I said, the lines are lighting up. Let's head over to Deep in Ottawa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Welcome to the show, Deep.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me, Deep?
I can.
Okay.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What are your thoughts? Are you feeling the squeeze? How do you think our politicians are reacting to this difficult situation that most of us find ourselves in?
Well, I am definitely feeling the pinch. I've been saying that for months and months and months.
Yeah.
But what I don't understand, and I think the reason politicians are not saying anything or doing anything, is because if you look around, anything which comes into market or anything which has a significant value is all sold out. You cannot find anything.
Yeah.
And it cannot be attributed all to supply chain problem. You talk about cars, bikes, RVs, homes, anything of any value, you cannot keep it on shelf. So somebody has money. I get the logic that foreign home buyers are buying homes, but they're not coming here buying our cars. They're not coming here buying our bikes, RVs, boats.
No, you've got a good point, because sales of all of those, leisure type of vehicles and activities and so forth, we saw record numbers during the pandemic, and the reason being that, people weren't, that they would, what we were told is people aren't traveling as much. They're obviously not going out. They're not eating out as much. So they're finding other ways to spend their money. There's no entertainment available. They couldn't go to the hockey game, the theater, and so on. But they were still spending some money. Deep, you make an excellent point.
But the other issue is, when people talk about inflation, right, people have to do something about it. So I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
The cottages are on fire, right? So if the cottage owners are charging crazy rent to rent out cottage for a week, well, why do people rent it? Just stop renting it. The price will come down. You do not need to rent a cottage to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I listen. This is something I've preached. You're preaching to the choir. We think that we are entitled to so many things, I think, in society today. It's that attitude of, I got to keep up with the Joneses. So if my neighbor gets to go on vacation twice a year, then I must go on vacation twice a year, and I will put myself in debt in order to go on vacation twice a year.
And then complain the price is high. If people stop collectively buying and renting and doing these stupid, crazy things with I don't understand, unbelievable amount of money people have, everything will calm down. I am telling you, people, some of the inflation is caused by people taking advantage of it, and I don't blame them. If somebody's going to pay me more for my cottage, I will absolutely take it.
Yeah.
But if there is nobody paying me $2,000 for a weekend, then guess what? I will have to rent it for $1,000 a weekend.
You're asking people to take some personal responsibility. I really respect what you're saying. I agree, and we're not categorizing everybody in the same spot here. That there are some people who could never see themselves renting a cottage or buying an RV or an ATV or a snowmobile and so forth. But you're right. There are people out there who are doing it. Deep, really appreciate the call. Great perspective today from Deep. Let's head over to Mike from Ottawa. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
Good day, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
No, I'm doing fantastic. And
Excellent.
I disagree with the last gentleman that called. I think a lot of this stuff that has formed has been dealt with by our own society.
Yeah.
We have a lot of self-centered people out there. There's a lot of money in Ottawa. People have been staying home for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
They have not spent any money. And now when they have to, they're all crying wolf.
Yeah, we're certainly fortunate in Ottawa. There's a lot of excellent jobs, and I'm guessing you're probably referring to there's a lot of excellent government jobs. But maybe, as Deep was saying, I'm not sure those are the ones complaining. They're the ones that were buying
Everywhere I go, people complain. You can't afford it, you don't buy it.
Yeah,
you can't afford this $1 million house, you don't buy it. You said yesterday you can't afford a hybrid card. You don't buy it.
Yeah.
But people go up and beyond the means, and they want to keep up with the Joneses. Well, it's about time. And if you can't afford to have children, then you don't have children. I mean, I'm lucky to have 3.
Right.
And I'm up in my 50s, and I'm doing very well. But I worked hard for everything I've done.
Right.
And now every time I go out and buy things, I'm tipping everybody every day.
Yeah, and I mean, and good on you for that. Good on you for that, for tipping people every day. I think as we should. Mike's, thank you very much for the call. I understand where Deep and Mike are coming from, but I think we're getting away from the bigger picture here as well for a lot of people. Don't forget, we're talking about two different incomes, right? We're talking about, some people that do have enough money to spend on entertainment. And as I said, when things were closed down and people could no longer go. Like, think about going to a hockey game. I mean, there are some people that could afford, 4 tickets to a hockey game. That's $120 a ticket in some levels, right? $80 a ticket and so on. That is a lot of money, and they stopped spending their money on that because they couldn't go. They couldn't go on vacation. They couldn't. But there are a number of people out there who never go on vacation year after year after year because they can't afford to do it. And those are the people I'm thinking about during this difficult time with the cost of living increasing at an enormous rate. I'm thinking about those people as well. And that's not taking anything away, Deep, from what you said. I agree 100%. That there's a lot of people out there that, they're still buying leisure vehicles and renting cottages and so on. A lot of the examples that you gave, there's a lot. And some of those people are complaining and, they need to just, stop for a moment and think about, wait a minute, do we really need, are these needs or are they wants? Our lines are lit up again. I'm going to get to our other callers, but we need to take a break right now. My name's Derick Fage. I'm filling in for Rob Snow this week, right here on Rogers TV and City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Thursday, the 17th of March. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy and 6 degrees, 9 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. A young man from the Kingston area is clinging to life in a Texas hospital this morning after a fiery highway crash that killed 9 other people. Hayden Underhill of Amherstview, west of Kingston, and Dayton Price from the Toronto area were critically injured when a pickup truck crashed into a van carrying student athletes back to their New Mexico university. Ontario's college colleges and the union representing faculty set to meet virtually today, one day before a threatened strike by college teachers and other academic staff. OPSU's bargaining team says if real progress is being made today, it is willing to extend the strike deadline beyond tomorrow. This is Ottawa and the Valley's first St. Patrick's Day without COVID limits in bars and restaurants in 3 years. 2019 was the last St. Patrick's Day when you could go out, pretend to be Irish in public with other people. Bars expect a surge of customers today, making up for lost time. Ontario's mask mandate ends Monday for most public places, and Ottawa Public Health has put out a statement this morning. It's lengthy, but the bottom line is, don't be a jerk to people who continue wearing their masks after the weekend. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Well, welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob Snow. The phone lines are open and they are lit up. We are talking about the cost of living. We had some different perspectives, actually, from what we had yesterday. I think for the most part, though, most of you, are feeling the pinch. Most callers that we've had yesterday and today. Let's go over to Gabrielle in Smith Falls. Gabrielle, what do you think? We've had some different perspectives on today's show. What about yourself? Are you feeling the pinch? How are you and your family doing?
Oh, we're definitely feeling the pinch.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call, by the way.
You're very welcome.
So my boyfriend and I, we're a very young couple. I'm 20 and he's 24.
Okay.
And I'm a female heavy equipment auto operator, and I work in Ottawa. And it's gotten so expensive, fuel. It's to the point where I've had to quit my job.
Really?
And yeah, I've had to go and back to school for like a PSW since schooling is free.
Wow.
Because we can't afford to both be working in Ottawa and living in Smith Falls.
Well, and heavy equipment operator, that's a fairly decent wage, is it not?
Exactly, and he's a crane operator. So
holy jeez.
We make really good wages, and we still can't get by. And we're lucky enough to live in a mobile home, so we don't have rent. But the cost of propane to heat our house is $700 a month.
$700 a month? Oh, my goodness.
And we don't leave it high. We leave it at 68 Fahrenheit. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the points of the people we're making where, you can't afford things, don't buy them, 100%, I agree with them on that point. But when it's to the point where young families can't even afford to heat a mobile home when we're both working over 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like, that's sad.
Yeah, and I actually, during those calls, I noticed that our producer David was getting frustrated as well, just as you're talking here. And that, you understand there are people that, are spending that money that they're spending on needs, on wants and not needs. But don't forget, there's a lot of people like yourself, Gabrielle, and your boyfriend who have good paying jobs and still can't afford the cost of living right now. Gabrielle, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. We do have a one line open, 613-750-1310. We would love to hear from you. This is the Talk Back Hour on the Rob Snow Show. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob. Let's head over to Irene in Ottawa. Irene, how are you and your family making out? Irene, are you there? Oh, we just lost Irene. Okay. Irene, give us a call back. Let's head over to Anne in Ottawa. Anne, how about yourself and your family? How are you making out these days?
Well, I wasn't even going to call until I heard a couple of those callers talking about, you poor rich people complaining about the cost of gas. Listen, when gas prices are like this, the people this hurts the most are the ones you were talking about. The people who don't have two nickels to rub together, they are crying. They can't afford, if they even have a car, to put gas in it. But it doesn't just affect that. It affects the cost of everything at the store.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This is the biggest cruelty of this whole thing. And, I mean, a huge part of this, the Ukraine caused some of the misery. But the carbon, as soon as you call something a pollution tax, Leo, you're pretty much saying you support Trudeau. So I'm just going to lay that out. Because the thing is, we were already taxed up the yin-yang on gas anyway. Even
Oh,
before
absolutely.
any of this, I mean, what, half the price of a liter practically is taxes. But I mean, you don't hear anything from Trudeau about pulling back the April thing. There's going to be not one but two things. There's going to be increasing the carbon tax, but also this clean air fuel standard. I mean, if you even hear former Liberal guys who are in like the Chrétien government, have you ever talked to Dan McTeague? I mean, he thinks this is just lunacy. What's going on right now?
It is, and the timing couldn't be worse. Actually, I don't even think that. You know, I've said that a couple of times. I forget about that. It doesn't matter what the timing is coming out of pandemic and so forth. Just the increases across the board. And as you said, you know, the Trudeau government, you know, this carbon tax coming in, it's going to kill people. What about cutting the GST?
Yeah.
You know, like let's look right across the board what affects so many people. You know, you mentioned the fuel tax. I mean, there are so many ways we could be helping, but we hear nothing. And I will include the Ford provincial government as well. Heard nothing from them either on how we're going to help families.
You're absolutely right. But the cruelest thing to me of all is, since when do you impose a sin tax on people heating their places so they don't freeze to death? I mean, this is the most cruel thing of all.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are really going to get have to be sitting down when they open their Enbridge bill, because if you're on equal billing, you're not going to realize how much it's going up, because, you know,
it is dangerous. I mean, that's an excellent point. It's dangerous to get on that equal billing because you will get dinged at the end of the year, and I've seen it happen. It's happened to me one year. It was a huge mistake we made.
And as to that, there was one lady who made a comment about daycare. Any promises being made on daycare, you're not going to see anything for probably 4 years. I mean, anything like that, it would take that long to put it in place. And by the way, the example of Quebec is not such a shining example. If you really look into it, it's very unfair. People get spaces when they shouldn't. And
that's going to be an issue. There's no doubt. But they don't want to discriminate against anybody, no matter how much money you're making, right?
Well,
the criteria is the same for everybody.
And that's not right.
Yeah, and always appreciate your perspective and your calls. Thanks so much for calling in today. Let's head over to Paul, who's in the Byward Market. Paul, how are things in the Byward Market there right now? Any St. Patrick's Day revelers down there at the moment?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Some loving family members in front of Briere Hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Listen, Derek, first of all, you're doing a great job. You're workaholic, you.
Oh, thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I'm calling to give a point with everybody that's been calling all week, and especially yesterday and today.
Okay.
How things have been tough. I just want to share an example where, regardless of what social economical status you're in or whatnot, and this it's all about COVID and all everything that's backlogged and everything, so that's why the prices are going up.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the blame is just one straight brush across everything.
Are you talking about the supply chain, Paul? That's been blamed for a lot of things? Yeah.
As Lowell Green would say, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
The example I have is that I have an old dog.
Okay.
Just before COVID hit, she had a problem with her teeth, a tooth.
Okay.
And had to be extracted.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And because she's considered geriatric at the time, which is pre-COVID, it costs so much.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Vet bills are expensive, Paul. There's no doubt about that.
I know, but that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
And the veterinary services were considered during all of COVID and whatnot essential services.
Right.
She just got another tooth done.
Okay.
2 years older.
Yep.
It cost almost twice as much.
So it's gone up twice as it's gone up two times the amount from 2 years ago.
A little over $1,200.
Okay.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Just got it done. It cost me $2,200.
Wow.
To have the same procedure done.
Yeah. Yeah, just an example of how everything's going up. Because, I mean...
Where does that fall into the supply chain...
I guess that falls into the inflation. And listen, I have interviewed a lot of veterinarians over the years, but boy, oh boy, the cost of taking your animal to the vet just for a checkup it's crazy. And I know there's overhead in everything, but I understand where you're coming from, Paul. I do.
I guess unconditional love is worth a lot of money after all.
Yeah, it's true, Paul. Paul, happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks so much for the call. Take care. Let's head over to, we do have one line available, 613-750-1310. Give us a call. Erica from Hammond. Erica, are you feeling the pinch? How is your family making out these days?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
We're on the other end of the spectrum.
Okay.
My boyfriend is 61, and he is a minimum wage earner.
Okay.
He has worked for the same company for 20 years. He started at $11 an hour, is now up to a whopping $19 an hour.
Wow. And that's over an 11-year period, you said, Erica?
No.
20 years, sorry. 20 years.
Years
my
now.
apologies. Yeah, 20 years now.
20 years, and his pay increase has gone up $8 in that time.
There is a reality check for a lot of us, eh?
So, increasing the minimum wage to $15.50 by April 1st is a screaming joke because the cost of living is $27 an hour. So every person that's out there working on the minimum wage scale is not pulling in. They're short $100 an hour. He has to pay for his health care insurance.
So he has no benefits either, Erica?
He doesn't. Benefits are available through the company, but you have to pay for them.
Right. You have to pay the monthly fee.
He has to pay the monthly fee.
Right.
Okay, I was a registered nurse who broke her back, ruined her shoulders.
Sorry to hear that.
You name all that.
Yeah.
So I am now on disability. So I went from a healthy income down to $900 a month, which doesn't cover dental care. I mean, they'll cover an extraction and they'll cover a filling, but they won't cover anything else.
Simply emergency type services.
I'm paying for my own chiropractic care for my back.
On $900 a month.
Which is not covered through ODSP.
Yeah.
I cannot claim it on my income taxes because I am on Ontario disability.
Yeah.
I do not qualify for the disability tax credit from the federal government because I'm not in a wheelchair with a Foley catheter with a seeing eye dog beside me or laid up in bed receiving full-time care in a nursing home.
I can hear the frustration in your voice, Erica.
I could scream.
Yeah.
Where you want $10 a day daycare? Well, that's a social conundrum if I ever heard one. Who can? Do you really think it's going to cost $10 a day?
Well, it's going to cost you. Well, it's going to cost. It's going to cost a heck of a lot more.
With a reality check for Canadians and say, oops, we made an error in our calculation. It's going to cost $30 a day. Why don't they just say, listen, we learned from COVID, the benefit is one parent can stay home on a $40,000 a year paid income from the federal government. That way the children are fed, clothed, dressed, out the door for school. There's someone home to feed them at lunchtime. There's someone home to get them off the school bus after school. You don't have to bother with daycare. You don't have to work. Working at home is an honest-to-goodness full-time job.
Oh, it is for sure, Erica, but $40,000 a year for, a family of three or four.
We make ends meet. Here, our home in Hammond is fully electric.
Okay.
All electric.
Yeah.
We don't get an incentive from Mr. Ford being all electric. Our carbon footprint is practically zero out here. We have one car. It's a 1996 Toyota.
96? Nice.
That's
vintage. My goodness.
That's all we can afford.
Yeah.
That's all we we can afford, and we drive 45 minutes for him to get to work his minimum wage job.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 weeks ago, there was a woman on from the labor board, and she said, get yourself a unionized job. That's all
Oh, yeah, it's easy to say. Erica.
That's easy to say. He's 61 years old.
Yeah.
What kind of a union job is he going to get?
Not a lot of jobs available for 61-year-olds at any given day. That's Eric. And I've heard. Thank you so much for the call, Eric. I really appreciate it. You can listen to the frustration in Erica's voice. From $11 an hour to $19 an hour in 20 years working for the same company, being a loyal worker, for the same company. We have one line available. 613-750-1310 is the number. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with the final segment of the Talk Back Hour here on the Rob Snow Show. I am Derick Fage, filling in for Rob right here on Rogers TV and City News.
I'm Emily Bertrand, the owner of Royale Equestrian Center. This is Diamond. She's a 10-year-old thoroughbred. She used to be a racehorse and then made the transition to a riding horse. She loves jumping, and she's used for our more advanced students. So we started the farm 14 years ago with my mom and brother. My brother was actually driving by one day and saw the sign, and we applied. There were 60 applicants, and we got it. When we first started, there was not very much here, so our property's about 25 acres, and there was just this 100-year-old barn. And from there, we built onto it. We fixed up one stall at a time, one paddock at a time. We added one horse at a time, and slowly it built into what it is today. Every year, we're improving and trying to continue to build. And most recently, we added 2 shed row barns this year. I love horses. I've been obsessed with horses since I was a little girl. The first time I got to ride, I was 4 years old, and I just loved it. My mom thought it was going to be a phase, and that phase never ended. I kept riding all through high school, and then eventually, started Royale Equestrian Center. It was my dream to always own a farm and to build a place that I could share my passion for horses with others and do the same thing for the kids that the horses did for me. So I absolutely love it. It's a dream come true. COVID hit, that was challenging. I was pretty stressed, especially the first few months, trying to figure out how are we going to navigate all of this. Our business is based on people coming in. We don't make much revenue if there's nobody coming in to ride. So that was really challenging. And then the other aspect of it was how are we going to care for all these horses if we're fully shut down and there's no income coming in. So we worked really hard. Some of our team were so kind to actually just come in and volunteer and help us out. And we made through it. We got through it. It's been hard and a lot of work, but it's also shown us how resilient we can be. So I'm happy with how we're coming out of COVID. Hopefully this is, we're nearing the end of all the shutdowns, but we've, survived it, and now we're starting to thrive again, which is great. So we have a great team. We have about 14 coaches, and then we have all our regular barn staff. We have our maintenance manager and crew, and if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to do this. It takes a huge amount of people, and then we also have a volunteer program. The volunteer program, it helps with us, especially with our beginner program, so they help with tacking up the horses and caring for the horses when we're really busy. And then they also get to gain some work experience. We take co-op students on. We're quite a busy and vibrant place, and it takes a lot of people to make it work, even through to behind the scenes from our accountants, my family, who are always stepping in to help out. It takes a small village.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob. It is the Talk Back Hour, the final segment in our Talk Back Hour. We're going to jump right into the phones here because our lines are lighting up. We're talking cost of living. Let's head over to Jennifer in Rockland. Jennifer, how are you and your family doing these days?
We're struggling,
yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
I'm a single parent,
okay,
and I have 3 teenage boys.
Wow.
I also work in healthcare.
Okay.
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I had to take off work for a couple of months to be home with the kids with school. I have my kids full time.
Okay.
So, of course, that was a struggle being home for a couple of months to make sure that they did their travel or their school and everything else. One of my sons has a severe learning disability, so and I don't have enough money to pay for tutors and all those other things, and I have to be home with them. So then when I went back to work, I'm working 3 jobs just to put food on the table.
3 jobs now?
And I work in healthcare. I mean, one of my jobs, I work for the city, like in group homes with adults with disabilities. And then I have 2 other jobs to just, get by. I mean, one of my sons just turned 18, so I no longer get some support for him.
Right.
And I mean, he's working full time, but he works at minimal wage. So, I mean, he doesn't, he has to pay his car, his gas, and his insurance. He's just starting out. I want him to put some money away. So I work, just to feed. I mean, you know how expensive. I make too much money to qualify for any assistance, but not enough money to survive. I'm lucky enough. I bought my house when things were low, but I bought out of town. I work also in close to Canada. So.
Oh wow, yeah. You're going from Rockland to Canada, Jennifer? Rockland
exactly.
Holy, the cost of that alone.
And I've worked for the agency for 20 years, so for my main job, and I'm lucky enough that I do have benefits, so that does cover a lot of the kids' costs when it comes to, any health care or anything like that.
Yeah. What do you want to hear? What do you want to hear or see from our politicians, Jennifer? Like what could help you out right now as a single mom with three teenagers? I mean, the groceries alone in your household must be astronomical.
That.
Yeah.
So, I mean, something needs to change. I know even working in healthcare, I mean, even like insurances and stuff like that give credit for people not driving and people being home. We don't get anything. We still had to go into work. I don't work from home. Yeah. And just our pay wage, the same as other people. Like my pay wage has not gone up,
right?
To reflect the cost of living and everything else. I make okay money, but not enough money to to get by. And I mean, it's not. It's ridiculous, and I find for people in the same situation as myself, I mean, being a single parent, I'm not the only one.
Oh no, there's
having
many
kids at home and not having and doing. I mean, I have them full time, so of course it's difficult. And I said just to feed them, my grocery bill every week is $400.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
That's budgeting. That's not even. And then when you put in gas, I mean, I drive a Santa Fe.
Okay.
And just to fill my tank the other day was over $100.
Wow.
And, I go through a quarter of a tank every time I go to work. So
look at that throughout the week. The added
there.
cost
and
there.
And I'm on electric heat. So, of course, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have my house, and I bought it cheap enough that I can afford, my mortgage, but I'm struggling.
I hear you, Jennifer. I hear it in your voice. Jennifer, I hate to cut you off, but I just want to get to some more calls, but I really appreciate the call, Jennifer, and I hear it in your voice, the struggles that you're having. I really do. Let's head over to Devin in Lanark Highlands. Devin, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the show. How are things with you these days when it comes to the cost of living?
So it's tight. My husband and I, we have 3 kids, so family of 5.
Yeah.
We've been pretty good at budgeting. We keep track of everything. And for a family of 5, so we have 1 child in daycare.
Okay.
The other 2 are in school, so there's no daycare fees associated with that.
Yeah.
Our kids don't do extracurriculars. We're very, very basic.
So you had no extracurricular at all, after school?
No, not with pandemic, right? We've kind of cut back on that, so but it's not part of our monthly bills.
Okay.
So, what would you think? And we make good money.
Okay.
But our monthly bills are $6,000 a month.
$6,000. Do you have a mortgage?
We have a mortgage. We own our home. My husband has a truck.
Okay.
And I have an SUV.
Okay. Because, I'm just looking at, right now, most mortgage rates here in Canada are running about 1.2%. If that went up, I don't know, 0.25%, would that put you in dire straits?
Well, exactly. And that's what it is. But But $6,000, like, we make good money, so, you know, we can just afford it. But that's, imagine the people on, you know, minimum wage.
Oh, yeah.
Families just start, like, I don't know.
If you are on minimum wage, Devin, I mean, first of all, you're not living by yourself. You're probably having to rent maybe a room, or you're renting, you know, a home with 2 or 3 other people to be able to afford just the basics, right?
Yeah.
Shelter, roof over your head, food on the table, your utilities, your internet connection, right? And your cell phone. I mean, that's all you can afford.
And exactly, and that's what our bills are. It's the basics for a family.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, I mean, I love listening to the callers because we're really getting so many different versions of everybody's reality. But it's just, you know, I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say I feel like I'm not heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
and that's why we do this.
I'm forgotten.
Yeah, I understand.
My husband and I both worked through the pandemic. But if we had not for 1 week, if we had taken off 1 week, we would have noticed like, you know, I can't imagine these people that are in those situations.
Yeah, that are in those sectors, right? Those industries that you know, were open and closed constantly. Devin, I just want to take a couple of more calls. Thank you so much for the call. Really appreciate you calling in today. Let's head over to Mel from Ottawa. Mel, just quickly want to get your thoughts here before we have to go to break.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
That's a pleasure.
We on my family farm in the Ottawa area, and just as an example, you know, the fertilizer bill is supposed to double this year. So if we spent $100,000 last year, we're spending $200,000 on fertilizer inputs and stuff. So I mean, you know, the food prices locally anyhow are gonna go up. You know.
Yeah, and Mel, you're forced to charge more, right? I mean, you cannot take on double what you were paying last year for fertilizer. You can't take that on. Are you a relatively smaller farm, Mel?
Family farm, so you know, we right now we don't have any workers here, so I'm out moving snow here in the winter. We clear snow to pay the bills and make the ends meet and stuff.
Right.
So I'm out in the tractor right now clearing some snow out of a parking lot. It's gonna be rough on everyone. Like, we've got to charge more to cover these added costs. I mean,
absolutely.
With the fuel costs, I mean, look at $2 diesel basically, and all our tractors and their delivery trucks are all on diesel and
all that equipment.
You know.
Mel, appreciate the call. I just want to get to one last caller here who's been on hold for a little bit. Justin from Ottawa. Justin, you get the final say on the Talkback Hour today.
Thanks, Derick, for taking my call.
Pleasure.
I guess wanted to reflect on something I saw yesterday put out by Abacus Data.
Okay.
About sort of the way that Canadians are split among, you know, income and sort of their view of government.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can think about when I hear people talking is we're treating tax like a 4-letter word. And those of us who are fortunate to have done okay and make a decent income, you know, we live in a progressive tax system, and we should be paying more to support, you know, some of the callers that we've heard who, you know, might work on minimum wage or have to work, you know, an extra hour to pay that extra bill. But every time we talk about tax, it's like a swear word.
Yeah, you're right. It is like a dirty word. If we want to live in a society like we have here in Canada, we're so fortunate. You're right. I mean, my father has always said to me that he's happy to pay taxes to help out his neighbor, right?
Me too.
Who's in
I
need.
think the conversation has become, you know, sort of muddied by some of the politics around it. But I think, you know, carbon tax is a fraction of a cent on every liter. You know, we need to get a little bit better about the way we talk about some of these things and try to support Canadians who are struggling, Canadians who essentially, you know, bore the load for everyone else during the pandemic. And I'm happy to pay a little bit more to do that. And I think we need to get a little bit better about the way we talk about taxes and the benefit of all.
Justin, really appreciate your perspective here to wrap up today's Talkback Hour. Thanks so much for the call. That does it for the Talkback Hour. Guess what? We'll do it again tomorrow, and tomorrow it's the Friday free-for-all. Friday has finally arrived. It feels like a long week for so many of us. Thank you so much for all the calls. Fantastic Talkback Hour today. This is the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Thursday, the 17th of March. Good morning, I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy and 6 degrees. It's 9 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Russian forces escalating their attacks on civilians in Ukraine. A theater sheltering hundreds of people bombed, though some survivors have begun to emerge. And the strongest words yet from U.S. President Biden against Russia's Vladimir Putin. The latest from City's Jamie Pulfer.
The targeting of civilians continues in a shocking way as the Russian war in Ukraine rages on. In the southern port city of Mariupol, word that some people are emerging from the rubble of a theater that was hit by an airstrike where hundreds had been in a bomb shelter. Officials say that bomb shelter held. It is unclear, though, how many survivors there are. A rescue is underway. CNN's Scott McLean with the details of this merciless attack.
A satellite image showed that the word children written out in Russian was clearly visible from the skies for any Russian airplanes to see.
Ukraine's defense minister calls the Russian pilot who bombed the theater a monster. Just a few kilometers away, a building housing a public swimming pool was also hit. It had been sheltering women and children, according to officials. Speaking to a reporter, U.S. President Joe Biden brands Russian President Vladimir Putin a war criminal for the first time.
I think he is a war criminal.
Now, this is something the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is in Ukraine investigating.
One thing is clear, the law is clear on this. It is a crime to intentionally target civilians.
Now, diplomatic negotiations between Russia and Ukraine continue today. Ukrainian officials now say that 9 evacuation corridors have been agreed to out of several cities. Those corridors didn't work yesterday because Russia didn't stop shelling. The humanitarian crisis is growing, and the UN Security Council is meeting about that later today. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
City News time 11:04. A young man from the Kingston area is one of 2 Canadians fighting for their lives after a fiery highway crash in West Texas. 9 other people were killed in the crash when a pickup truck collided with a van carrying student athletes back to their school in New Mexico after a Texas golf tournament Tuesday night. Authorities identified the 2 critically injured students as Hayden Underhill of Amherstview, that's west of Kingston, and Dayton Price of the Toronto area. Hayden's older brother says his parents are flying to Texas to be with his brother. The federal health minister says vaccinated travelers will no longer need to show a COVID-19 test to enter this country beginning the 1st of April. He, the Transport and Tourism Minister, is making the announcement this morning. Incoming tourists will still need to be vaccinated against COVID-19 to visit Canada, and all inbound travelers must also upload their details to the ArriveCan app. Vaccinated people could also still be subject to random molecular tests when they arrive at Canadian airports. Time now for a check of the forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Enjoy the one-day warm-up. It's a very mild St. Patrick's Day for us. Some clouds, sunny periods, and the high 14 degrees. We will stay mild for the rest of the week and into the weekend, but today is the exception, well above average. 3 degrees tonight, mainly cloudy. Tomorrow we get into some showers, but not until the evening. Tomorrow's high 9 degrees, and then for the weekend a little bit cooler, highs near 5, but that's still above average. Rain on Saturday, some showers Sunday. For today, the high 14.
8 right now in Ottawa under a partly cloudy sky. It's up to 12 in Smiths Falls. I'm Jason White. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in. You, of course, are watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News. A little bit of a lighter fare. Listen, he self-described as the world's #1 NHL historian, and let me just top that up by saying I also would consider him the world's #1 NHL historian. I am talking about hockey historian Liam Maguire joining us on the show today. Good morning, Liam.
Derick, good morning, my friend. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, buddy.
And to you. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about because you've got some interesting stories to share with us. So let's first of all talk about maybe some of the most notable NHL players of Irish descent.
For sure. Well, Owen Nolan in modern time, born in Belfast, one of the names that most people would be familiar with, having been born in Ireland. There's so many others currently in the league or even just most recently that have played in the league. Ryan McDonough, Bobby Ryan right here in Ottawa, Ryan O'Reilly, Conn Smythe winner with St. Louis, Brendan Gallagher with Montreal, James Neal, Shane Doan, Dan Boyle, an Ottawa native, Morgan Riley with the Leafs, Sean Monahan with Calgary, former Ottawa 67. So many currently or even just recently with Irish connections. Brendan Shanahan, longtime great player, Hall of Famer, now with the Leafs. Both of his parents born in Ireland. And one of the best stories is involving one of the most unique games in NHL history on March 23rd, 1952, when Bill Mosienko set the record that'll never be broken with 3 goals in 21 seconds for the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah.
Holy jeez.
Yeah, a great local connection, too, because he was with the Chicago Blackhawks. They were playing the New York Rangers. It was the last game of the regular season, and the goaltender that the Rangers used was not their normal starter, Gump Worsley. They rested him for the night and played a kid from Renfrew, Ontario.
From the Valley. Nice.
From the Valley, baby. Right up 17, right up the Ottawa River. How's he going? And named Lorne Anderson. And Bill Mosienko, one of the greatest quotes ever post-game where he said, "I caught lightning in a bottle." But the number of interesting factoids continue on with that story from that game is the winning goal in that incredible shootout 7-6 Chicago win featuring Mosienko's 3 goals in 21 seconds was scored by a man named Sid Finney from Breckenridge, Ireland.
Sid Finney.
There you go.
Oh, there's an Irish name for you right there.
Yeah, it just sounds like it belongs in the movie The Quiet Man or something. But yeah, there's a couple of great Irish connections there. And certainly you go to guys like King Clancy, an Ottawa native. And King Clancy's father was born in Ireland, Tom Clancy, the original King. King got his nickname from his dad. Tom Clancy was born in Ireland in 1872, came over, settled in the States, came up to Ottawa to play football. He was a Grey Cup winner. He was an outstanding athlete. And his son later, of course, won Stanley Cups, both with the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And just to give again, as I love doing the local tie-ins, Derek, is King Clancy, so Tom Clancy, his son King's great-nephews were students at St. Leonard's Elementary in Manotick, Ontario, when I attended there. So it was just a great connection, not only through the city, but through the great country of Ireland, where my late father was born and raised. So
I know how proud you're extremely proud of your Irish heritage, Liam. I mean, you even have an Irish pub named after you. Right? How does Liam? I gotta ask this. I gotta ask this for our listeners. How does Liam Maguire celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Where would we find Liam Maguire today?
It's a little calmer than it was back in the day, I can tell you.
I was going to say, keep it clean, Liam, because I am sure the stories, they can get a little rough.
I'm actually, in about an hour's time, I'll be having a fantastic lunch in the village of Manotick at the Black Dog with my 91-year-old mother.
Nice.
And my brother Mike and a couple of a dear friend of hers from a senior residence she used to stay at, and her son. And the 5 of us are going to have a fabulous lunch. I will then hit a couple of locals just to celebrate the day with some friends, the Swan, maybe the Osgood Legion, places like that. But I'm going to end up, obviously, the main place for me tonight is Liam Maguire's, and a place that bears my name and I have my relationship with for 19 years, as I said, with Leo Dion and Keith Taggart before him. so proud and so honored to have that association with those guys. We have live music playing there all day, and
excellent.
And it's a big part of my life, brother. I love it, and really, really proud of it.
Yeah, you know what? While I have you on here, I know you love talking hockey, whether it's historical hockey or modern day hockey. Another day, another loss for these Senators. Liam. Yeah. A lot of young talent. If I look at this team, a lot of young talent, even in the top 9. Most people talk about the top 6, but there's a lot of talent. But that defense, outside of Shabbat and Zub, is just absolutely horrible. And Jake Sanderson on the way, for sure, and he's supposed to be the savior. But you look at Thomas Shabbat, looks like he could be out for the season. Matt Murray out for the season. What can this team do? I mean, there has to be a complete change on defense.
Well, there will be. There'll be an overhaul here for sure. Like you said, Shabbat and Zub form already a great pairing. If you want them as a pair, you can split them up. They're both top 4 all day, pretty much almost just about any other team in the league. At least 26 or 27 of the teams would take one, if not both of them, in their top 4 yesterday. So you got Sanderson coming. You're right. I do feel there's some undue pressure. He's having a bad run of injuries right now as he finishes his collegiate career. Mm-hmm. But there's no doubt about it. He's a no-brainer, I think, to step right into the lineup. So you've got a strange affection there between DJ Smith and Josh Anderson, who he coached in junior, and Zaitsev, who has proven to be slotted incorrectly and rarely ever gets a night off. And I think that has brought the defense down overall more often than not, compounded with the fact, Derick, that they have not had the goaltending, most of the year. They had Matt Murray early, and then all of a sudden he collapsed. They had, you get Forsberg early, then all of a sudden, it didn't look too good against Chicago. You got, doesn't matter who goes in, seems to have their fleeting moments. But coupled with the defense, which overall through the 6 positions has not been strong enough, as you just correctly stated, and then with the goaltending shaky and shoddy at best, you've got a team, and then with the injuries and the COVID. So
they've had bad luck. They have not had the luck of the Irish.
No, they haven't,
season.
Derek.
That's
Neither
for sure.
Neither have a number of other teams. But the fact is, by osmosis, they'll be better next year. They'll be better next year because that core of 8 or 9 guys they'll improve from there. Norris looks like a blue chipper. They haven't had Pinto all year. Batherson looks like a blue chipper. You've got Tkachuk and Shabbat signed. You've got Sanderson coming. You've got Zub, it was a great acquisition coming over and nobody wanted him. They pick him up and he looks great. Yep. So you've got some great pieces there. Having said that, this is still probably more than likely going to be a non-playoff year next year as well. And I think fans would be okay with that, but there's got to be improvement. And I think you'll see it next year.
They have to fight for a playoff spot next year, Liam. They have to be in the conversation, 3/4 of the way through the season. I don't disagree with you. At this point, they do not look like a playoff. Before we run out of time, I want to mention March 19th. 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. You've got some fun going on down there at the Rideau Carleton Casino.
I sure do. Yeah, it's a brand new gig for me, buddy. So I appreciate this. Very thankful to Helen McMillan and Tammy McMullen there at the Hard Rock. The first smart thing they did was turn around and brought Ken Craig on board, and I know you know him.
Yeah.
And no secret to anybody in the Ottawa area or Canada or North America as a promoter. So he's on board as a consultant, and he got me in there. And I met with them, and we've got this gig going. We're running a game show, a Jeopardy-style hockey trivia game show with prizes on Saturday night, pre-Sens Montreal, during the intermissions, and post-game. And it gets even better than that, Derick. The next week, Ottawa's #1 party band, Sticks and Stones, have also been brought on board as part of the entertainment package.
Nice.
And they're going to roll out next Saturday. They've got me this Saturday. And if we get the crowds and things look good, that's the intention, is to keep this puppy going. And it all starts on Saturday night with me, and I'm very, very excited about it. And thank them all for giving me the opportunity, because I am going to light it up large on that stage Saturday
I am
night.
not surprised. Oh, yeah, and this will be fun, right? It's for bragging rights, but there's going to be some prizes, tickets to NHL game. You got food and beverage and hockey. I mean, what more can you ask for here?
What more can you ask for? Exactly. It's volunteers. Come on up, get behind a podium, take your shot. I'll ask the questions. And then there'll also be an opportunity for people to come in and look. You don't have to ask me who won the Cup in 1926 or something. I'll just tell you it was the Montreal Maroons. But if you've got another story that you want answered or something, anything at all, I'm there for you all night to talk hockey. Let's get it on.
I love it. By the way, limited tickets available, so make sure you get your tickets. You can head over to www.ritocarltoncasino.com. Liam, happy St. Patrick's Day to you and your family. Have a wonderful day.
We will, Derek. Thanks very much for having me on, buddy.
A real pleasure. Take care. That again, hockey historian, what I consider the world's #1 NHL historian. Try to stump him. Go and visit Liam and try to stump him. Again, ritocarltoncasino.com to get your tickets or limited tickets. Speaking of St. Patrick's Day, our very own Amy Volume is at a pub right now. We're going to catch up with her and find out what the atmosphere is like and what she has planned at the Overflow Brewing Company. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow. You're watching on Rogers TV, listening on City News.
That's how I like it to sound. It's burning through the power of tears. It gets too hard to pick up. I know that one day it's gonna break down, 'cause I'm running into the ground. It's only got so many trips left around the sun. It's rusting out of gasoline, babe. Been trying to drive it as far as I can. It's hard getting started now and it's shaking like it didn't before. I know that one day it's gonna break down, 'cause I'm running into the ground. It's only got so many treads left around the sun. About this party that I was given, I've been pushing it as hard as I can. I'm not talking about marathons. I know that one day it's gonna break down, 'cause I'm running into the ground. It's only got so many trips left around the sun.
Community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 13.
You have to excuse me, I am not in my best. I've been gone for a month. I've been drunk since I left. These so-called vacations will soon be my death. I'm so sick from the drink. I need home for a rest. We arrived in December and
I just love that. I just love that Spirit of the West. Home for a I mean, that is must listening today. You've got to crank that somewhere. Yeah, wherever you're at. You know what? You know who I bet's going to crank that song out? I have a sneaking suspicion. Our very own Amy Volume from Shea 106, weekdays 12 till 3. You can catch her, and you're down there at the Overflow Brewing Company today, Amy. It must be, first of all, you must be so excited about being at an actual establishment on St. Patrick's Day.
Derick, I'm so excited and only a little drunk.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Okay, all right. Okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
But with any luck, perhaps later on.
Yeah.
Because, no, I am working right now. I'm doing my, I'm actually on air right now. I took over on the radio a little bit earlier today because it's such a huge day for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
You've got Mother Nature blessing us with, what is it going to be, like 14 today? There's sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Those yucky snow mountains are dissipating. They don't stand a chance. Everybody's in a positive mood. In fact, when I lived downtown, when I was coming in, I was getting a drive, of course. When I was getting my drive in, I passed a bunch of people who were already out and about doing their beer runs.
Oh, I love it.
Everybody's all dressed up, of course, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. And, no matter what your history, your lineage, your ancestral heritage, everyone is just a bit Irish today.
Absolutely.
You know?
So, what's it like right now? The atmosphere? Are people trickling in? Or how full are you at the moment down there at Overflow?
Not at all. Not just yet. Things are just getting opened. Things are just getting going. I have a feeling it's going to be a lunchtime crowd sort of thing, but. Listen, if you do want to come to Overflow, everyone's welcome. It's a great place to be. Everybody's in a really good mood. But I just want to let you know that they do have a band playing tonight, East Coast Experience, but those tickets have been sold out.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So it's going to be jamming here at Overflow later tonight. If you'd like to come in and have a sample of their delicious beer, I recommend the Amber.
Okay.
If you want to do that, you want to come in like basically now until they kick you out, unless of course you got those tickets, because tonight's going to be just a rockin' house.
Oh, no kidding. So I mean, are you? We teased it a little bit. Of course, you're working. You're not enjoying a pint at the moment, but are you going to continue
Of course I am.
Oh, okay. You're just not inebriated. I gotcha.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, you're drinking responsibly at the moment. I gotcha.
It is, yes.
Will you be continuing the festivities into the evening? What does St. Patrick's Day look like for Amy Volume for the rest of the day?
I have to tell you, though Volume doesn't sound Irish, my heritage is actually of Ireland. Great-great-grandparents from County Waterford, from Clashmore, and it's just my absolute dream to one day be there and celebrate in person. Until then, yes, of course, I'll be tearing it up today, Derick.
Very nice.
You? How are things going with City News back at the station?
Oh, things are great. I mean, we miss you. There's no doubt. You're a ray of sunshine for us here at the station.
Duty calls.
What's that?
Duty calls.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got a tough job out there. That's for sure. You're obviously going to mix in some Irish tunes and some Irish bands today. What have you got lined up for those that are going to tune in for Shea 106? What are the plans today?
Well, I think that we've got some. I believe that we have some Irish Rovers. We've got some Flogging Molly, Dropkick Murphys, of course. We got Spirit of the West, Thin Lizzy or Tin Lizzy, however you like to refer to them. Yes. And I'm on for an extra hour, so I know that I've got lots more Irish jams lined up for you. And we also have your classic, like the AC/DC and the Metallica anthem. So it's nothing but big smiles. My cheeks are already hurting, and we're just getting going here.
Excellent.
I'm just not complaining, and I would encourage everyone, if you have a chance, if you can, take an early lunch or an extended lunch, to come on down to Overflow Brewing Company, just off of Heron and Calidar, and it's just big smiles, raised glass, Solange to everyone who's listening.
Oh, nicely done. Yeah.
Get in some joy while you can. We're due.
Amy, have they got the decor going? Like, is it all, is it shamrocks and green all over the place there?
Yes, we
Nice.
do have some of that going. It's not overkill though. No,
Okay.
We don't want to be cheesy.
You're doing it classy. Yeah, you're classy St. Patrick's Day down there.
Yes, and over on Shea 106, we'll be talking about some of the best Irish folklore and myths and fables, and we do have some. There may or may not be a leprechaun here after today.
Really?
Okay, yes, until about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So if you come on by, you can try your hand, see how lucky you are. I'll be giving out $100 prize packs for OLG, but that is an in-person thing. You have to come down and whisper your name and et cetera, and
So is that
get in touch with you later.
Is that part of the Shea Payday that you've got going on?
It's not. The Shea Payday is completely separate.
Okay.
You wanna be
this is
listening
a
for money,
bonus.
so- yeah. There's a lot going on. It's like, where did we get all this money from?
David, now we know where all our money's gone. It's gone to the it's gone to the St. Patrick's Day celebrations.
We figured it out. We found
Some
it.
of it some of it to overflow as well, because I'm drinking on the company dime today.
Nice, Amy. Amy, thanks so much for joining us. Love hearing from you.
A pleasure, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. That's Amy Volume live down there at Overflow Brewing Company. Get on down there. As she said, tonight's entertainment is sold out, but if you get there beforehand, you can go and celebrate with Amy. Of course, Amy, weekdays 12 till 3 on Shea 106, but she is there an hour early today enjoying the festivities. Coming up after the break, it is The World with Elliot Tepper. Going to be talking about, of course, the Russian invasion. We'll get Elliot's thoughts on the continuing Russian invasion of Ukraine. I am Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
There we go.
You're going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
I love to make abundance boards. And why do I call them abundance boards? Because they're an abundance of all the things that you love together. There's no rhyme or reason, there's no rules. It's literally about taking a whole bunch of different ingredients and making them into something that you love, that you can snack on. Maybe curl up on the couch and have a snack night. Charcuterie is all about a meat plate. And antipasti is all about a little bit of meat, a little bit of fruit, and a little bit of snack that you might have at the beginning of a meal, like an appetizer. I like to take all of these concepts and kind of mesh them together. It's kind of like a work of art, because you're creating something delicious, but you're also creating something that looks super fancy, like from a gourmet style restaurant, but just using simple things you have.
Ottawa is a very political city, and it's not just political with the people in parliament. You got street politics, you got business politics, you got basketball politics, and if you don't know how to navigate the systems, you get left behind. I did. They thought I went crazy. They thought I was dead. I was. But it's never too late to heal, to rebuild, to reinvent yourself. Prezi.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Fully vaccinated travelers will no longer be required to complete a pre-entry test for travel to Canada.
Duclos says incoming tourists will still need to be vaccinated, and vaccinated people could also still be subject to random molecular tests when they arrive. Today begins the fourth week of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin claims his military is doing all that it can to protect civilian lives, but Ukraine says Russia bombed a theater in Mariupol that was sheltering as many as 1,300 people, mostly women and children. Moderna is following in Pfizer's path. Health Canada has approved the use of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine for children between the ages of 6 and 11 years old. Ontario's colleges and the union representing faculty are set to meet virtually today, a day before a threatened strike by professors and other academic staff. OPSU's college faculty bargaining team says if real progress is being made, it is willing to extend the strike deadline beyond tomorrow. And in sports, the Ottawa Senators fell to the Columbus Blue Jackets last night in a 4-1 loss. Tyler Ennis was the lone goal scorer for Ottawa. City News Time 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob. We're gonna turn our attention from some of the lighter fare. Talked to Liam Maguire a little bit earlier. Some great NHL history, connecting that Irish history to the NHL. Talking some notable NHL players of Irish descent, and then of course Amy Volume from Shea 106 over there at Overflow Brewing Company. But on a serious subject, we remain, our hearts remain with the people of Ukraine. You've been listening to the news here on City News with constant updates on an hourly basis of the Russian invasion. Here to talk more about it, we are joined by Elliot Tepper for his weekly segments on The World with Elliot Tepper. Welcome to the show, Elliot. Wonderful to have you back.
Thank you, Derick. Good to speak to you, although I wish we were talking about lighter fare.
Yeah, I agree, Elliot. And, it's been, now 3 weeks since the attack started. Let's look at where are we now?
Where are we now?
Yeah.
I've got kind of 3 points off the top, and then we can discuss a lot of detail.
Sure.
Because there's so much that should be talked about. But I think the very first, and it's a point I've been trying to make right from the outset, is that it's very possible this war could have been prevented had actions been taken much earlier. That is, I think we're living in the downstream results of a fundamental choice that was made much earlier. We're in this situation because, among other things, the nuclear threat was raised immediately by Putin.
Right.
You better not get in our way. But that message could have been on the other foot much earlier. We are involved, Canada's involved in something called Operation Reassurance.
Right.
We put people in Latvia, but it's part of a broader NATO exercise in the Baltics. And this is a deterrence operation. Operation Reassurance is to train, but it's basically to shore up NATO defenses and act as a deterrence. Now, a long time later, that is, how can I put this? Before there was any serious buildup, any hint that Mr. Putin would go down this path, it was made clear to him that there was not going to be an Operation Reassurance for Ukraine. Had 8,000 of those new troops that the U.S. just been sent much earlier and spread across as a tripwire those various military installations and other secure places that people were in that got attacked by the Russians on the very first day.
Mm-hmm.
80. They announced, we've hit 80 security places in Ukraine.
Right.
Had there been American, UK, maybe Canadian troops there much earlier, I don't think there would have been this buildupp. So I think
why the resistance from those countries to do that, Elliot, do you think?
Well, I think it's one of those things people are going to dig into history for, and we are at a hinge of history, Derick. This is not a normal operation. We are in one of those turning points, an inflection point in history.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of review going back. My job has been, I think, to remind people that possibly we could have avoided this, and perhaps it wasn't considered Ukraine was essential core interest to certainly the U.S. or other states, whereas it is a core interest to Russia, and not enough attention was paid to that. I think the second thing that we should emphasize is that now we are in this downstream situation. We are in our current wartime where Putin heard very clearly, we're not going to cross you, so he went in. Ukraine is on its own. We can talk, and I hope we will talk about all of the very stirring speeches and a lot of the material assistance which is now being given. Mm-hmm. But Ukraine is fighting this war on its own. There's not going to be boots on the ground from NATO forces, from neighboring countries, not from us, although we had people on the ground. Ukraine is fighting this on its own. And when we hear a lot of the conversation about how much support is being given, and it's all very welcome, and I'll be glad to discuss many details of it.
Okay.
Ultimately, Ukraine is fighting this on its own. And the third thing, which bothers me a great deal, is that the nuclear threat level on the globe is now up.
Right.
I don't... The first question Rob asked me a while ago back was, are we headed toward World War III? And I said, on the one hand, no. What I just talked about is NATO has made clear, and Biden has made clear over and over and over again, that NATO is not going to get involved in Ukraine. There's not going to be a direct confrontation of superpowers. But the ease with which and the frequency with which Putin has brandished that nuclear threat has really bothered me a great deal. There's 15 reactors there.
Yeah.
There's a room for accidents. But basically, beyond that, we have global powers at loggerheads. We have a model now. Look what Mr. Putin is getting away with. What does Iran read into that? What does North Korea read into that?
That's a great point.
What does China read into that? So these are my introductory comments. We can talk a great deal about the details now.
Yeah, let's dive into that. So, many commentators thought that, that Russia would be able to just march into Kyiv and take the capital with relative ease. That has not happened. What is your analysis on how the advance has played out, and why do you think it hasn't been the quick success that they had planned?
Well, the dogs of war are now loose, and that's worried me about nuclear matters. But, you always have a plan. As Mike Tyson said, the boxer said, you have a plan until you're punched in the nose. And what's happened is that the original plan, as near as we can tell by Mr. Putin, was indeed to have a blitzkrieg followed by an Anschluss. That is, he's going to have a quick strike. He was going to politically decapitate the country, possibly assassinate the leader. Mm-hmm. The London Times said in the first week there were 3 assassination attempts directly against Mr. Zelensky. And then after that, Ukraine would be, which is not a real state in their view anyway, is going to be incorporated into Mother Russia and to the Slavic Russian greatness. That didn't happen, and that I think was the original intent. It didn't happen because apparently we're hearing that the Russian military has not operated as it should have and could have, as Mr. Putin sees it. He was surprised, apparently, and the Ukrainians really have fought back so effectively until now.
Yeah, I agreed. So what do you think the Russian strategy is now and in the coming weeks?
Well, unfortunately, we know what it is because we've seen it before, not only when we weren't paying close attention to the conflict inside between Chechnya and Russian Federation, but if you went to Aleppo, if you go to Syria, you know how the Russians intervened decisively there to support President Assad. He was losing that war in Syria.
Yeah.
And Russia has used the Syrian conflict as a testing ground for all of its major equipment, a lot of its most advanced equipment, and the tactics needed to crush a civil uprising, a military uprising. They are very effective at crushing morale, surrounding cities, pounding cities into submission, and then claiming victory after they then march in victoriously. It's a grinding kind of war instead of the quick strike that they anticipated, and we see that now being played out in front of us.
Yeah, and we have seen signs of hope. Yesterday we reported right here on City News that there is still hope for a diplomatic solution. Both sides were, still willing to negotiate after several rounds of failed talk. And then as you've watched the two sides meet for diplomatic talks, what's your impression of those negotiations? Because even President Zelensky sounded hopeful at times.
Yes, the most recent noises coming out of this, remember when negotiations go on, there's a lot of posturing in public, and there's almost always, inevitably, behind-the-scenes things that we don't hear about or see.
Right.
So what we do see is that there's noises of optimism coming out of both sides, and that, well, let's start with saying they are meeting on a regular basis. And that in itself, I think, is interesting. There's also been third-party offers of helpfulness. Turkey has said, we'll help. And Israel, interestingly enough, has been a player here, carrying messages back and forth.
A major player, yeah.
We can talk about that. But there is a formal mechanism in place, and both sides are saying positive things about that formal mechanism. There is the possibility, perhaps, of a deal on the table, with both sides having made adjustments in what they are willing to accept and compromise on. So there's a possibility that this is... there's a negotiated way out of our situation without a complete capitulation by Ukraine to a military victory by Russia. Neither side wants either of that. So there is a possibility. There's one I've seen for quite some time, actually, on the table. The possibility exists that Mr. Putin could keep his job and his money, and Ukraine could keep, that is, the crushing sanctions that are put on are yet to really bite inside Russia. But when they do, the possibility that Mr. Putin, who's not succeeding on the ground in Ukraine and has brought a lot of misery to his own people, could face a threat. But on the other side of that, Mr. Putin can offer to Ukraine the possibility that the country will be allowed to continue to exist as a sovereign state. Mr. Zelensky and his family will be allowed to live, and that the idea that Mr. Putin may be able to accept is that no, and this is what's on the table right now, Mr. Zelensky is indicating this, we will not join NATO, but we will join the EU. So we'll be part of the European family, but so therefore satisfying our people's desire to be a Western-oriented country, but we will not join NATO, and possibly we'll have to declare neutrality. The key thing here for me, in terms of a possible solution, Derick, is what about all of that successful conquest and movement to cut Ukraine off from the sea?
Yeah.
If it goes back to the borders of 2014, and Russia's willing to pull out and allow Ukraine to have some territorial integrity, access to the sea first and foremost, about not making it a bifurcated, cut up rump of a state that has no access to its primary economic corridors. That, I think, will be the nub of the final stage of these negotiations, if what we see in front of us is real and not just more razzle-dazzle by Mr. Putin to keep us dangling along till he can achieve a military victory.
Elliot, we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to turn our attention to the West and see what perhaps more can be done when it comes to help from the West. We're speaking with Elliot Tepper, Carleton University International Affairs professor. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow. We'll be right back after this.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. And the other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but of the 30-odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. But yeah, it's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And yep, it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick, Fage here, filling in for Rob. Our second half of The World with Elliot Tepper, Carleton University International Affairs professor. We continue our conversation on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we turn our attention to help from the West and what more can be done. Let's first of all talk about President Zelensky's impassioned speech. What were your impressions of his speech, Elliot?
Well, he has mobilized his position to be the leader of the free world in a sense. What he's been saying in Canada, but also a really great speech when he addressed the EU and the UK and Germany now, and of course the US. He's saying this isn't a fight only for Ukraine. This is a fight for democracy against dictatorship, against autocracy. That we are the ones doing the fighting right now. But if you don't defend us, it's going to be you fighting this fight going forward. So we will do our part if you help us and if you support us. One phrase out of his talk here, in his speech. These are for the ages speeches, Derick. So he said, we are not asking for much. We are asking for justice, for real support, which will help us to prevail. And he carried on from there. But he's saying, we're not just defending ourselves, we are defending you.
Yeah.
And that's the message he's giving in every place he's giving these wonderful speeches.
And making it very personal. Yes. Right, to many of the leaders, and giving examples of what if this was your city, what if it was Ottawa or Edmonton or and on and on, and this idea of a no-fly zone seems to have become a real non-starter. I mean, other than sending weapons and money, does the West have a larger role to play? What would that role look like?
He's asking for real support that you can use. The no-fly zone is indeed off the table because of the things we've talked about, that the U.S. has made it clear that NATO is not going to directly confront Russia, leaving Ukraine on its own. But more and more material can be put in, and this is where the big debate is coming in among military specialists, that you don't really need to have a no-fly zone. What you need to do is stop things from coming in, and you can do that from the ground. In fact, it might be better to do it from the ground. And there's a big debate now about the type of armaments. What's happening now is increasingly sophisticated weapons and weapon systems are being taken into Ukraine, and they in turn can hit a wider variety of targets. That is, the planes that are flying in, and this is something that I don't think has been, despite all the commentary, made clear, that a lot of what's happening in Ukraine is actually originating inside the Russian territory itself. Planes take off from there,
course,
military comes from there, missiles in particular come from there. What do you do about that? Well, there's missile defense system, the S-300, which is, it gets into a lot of detail here, but the point is that increasingly sophisticated and more effective weapons are apparently still reaching in to Ukraine from the U.S. and from the neighboring states.
Well, yeah, which was a concern, right, Elliot? That some of it may not make it there, but we're seeing that's still those are still those pathways to getting them there still remain open.
Yes, indeed, and we don't know for how long, and of course we don't really know all the pathways either because we should not.
Yeah, exactly.
But that attack, remember the Russians are coming in from the east of the country and working their way west, and that's from the more Russian-speaking part of the country, but also the more industrial and economically important part of the country, making their way westward, and the Russians, as we know, did attack what was likely a supply line coming in. That is, they're trying to interdict and warn off the bringing in of all these weapons. But it was very close to the Polish border where President Biden has said repeatedly, not 1 centimeter of NATO will be sacrificed. You cannot attack us. Well, what if one of those missiles had gone astray and gone into Poland? What if it had gone into a field? Would anything be done? What if it hit?
Yeah.
So we are in the dogs of war phase, and more and more is being put in by the West. We don't know how long, and in fact, it's a very good question you raised, Derick, how long that will last.
There are 3 themes you wanted to discuss here. I want to get to that final theme, and that is China. You know, many eyes are on China. What are China's interests in the Ukraine conflict, broadly speaking?
Broadly speaking, they want to support their ally. That is, if you join Russia and China into, as they said on February 4th, when Mr. Putin went to the Olympics, but he really went to sign a new alliance sounding document, a very long document saying, as Mr. Xi Jinping said that we are in an agreement without borders, without end. This is an endless. We are really such good friends in so many different ways that we support you, for example, in saying we don't want color revolutions. Well, there's no color revolution in China. That is a popular uprising, but both of these are autocratic and increasingly dictatorial regimes, fearing first and foremost an uprising of their own people. Mm-hmm. But now, within 8 days, Derick, there were crushing sanctions put on Russia, things that can really hurt them in a way that no other sanctions regime has done. China had to take notice of that, and they have to be very careful because they are a global trading partner, and these sanctions, they can be caught up in them themselves with their companies around the world. Also, how much farther how closely do they wish to be associated with this kind of behavior? And they have to play their cards very carefully. Anthony, the U.S. Secretary of State has contacted his counterpart, very, very high-level contact between the two states. And the U.S. Secretary of State said, we're warning you. You'd better not be getting yourselves involved in the way that we've been told. You're not going to be supplying military supplies here, are you? You're not going to be tying yourself even closer. You're not going to be trying to give the back door to the sanctions to save Russia. We are serious about these sanctions. You'd better be serious too. So that's driving a wedge maybe between China and Russia.
Yeah, because it was very strong language, right? I think oftentimes when you see countries dealing with China, they tread very carefully because of what China's, manufacturing, cheap labor and so on mean to the rest of the world. But we've seen a lot of strong language towards China, especially coming out of the U.S.
Increasingly strong language around the world against the behavior of, now that China is emerging under Xi Jinping, there's a lot of pushback. And he's in a situation now where that pushback could increase. The word Taiwan has to come into this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So could this influence China's behavior towards Taiwan?
Well, here we have a situation which is Xi Jinping, and this is totally different. What we have in the case of Russia is a movement to reincorporate a non-state that should never have been there in the first place, whereas we are totally different when it comes to Taiwan because it's a non-state that never should have been there in the first place.
Right.
The reaction of the world to what's going on in Ukraine clearly is being monitored by China in terms of a possible takeover of Taiwan, which is on Mr. Xi Jinping's to-do list sometime before the end of his tenure. And his tenure, of course, is also wrapped up in how does China react to Ukraine, because what he wants is global economic stability. When he approaches his October or so meeting of the Communist Party to confirm him not only for an unprecedented third term, but basically to be leader for life. And he does not want anything, including Russia, to be messing with that. So I'm watching all of this very carefully in terms of Taiwan, and so is everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot, always great to get your perspective on international affairs, in particular this Russian invasion of Ukraine. Really appreciate your time again today.
You're very welcome, and what a time we're living in, Derick.
Absolutely. All the best to you, Elliot. Thanks so much again. That's Elliot Tepper with The World with...
This program is brought to you by NB.